World Premiere.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Jeff Keighley, and you can tell it's me because I'm wearing some really awesome shoes. We got the Welcome to the Game Awards 2023. We have the classic Game Awards theme song playing behind me right now. And tonight we're just here to celebrate all of the incredible games that came out this year and the people who made them, except for Talos Principle 2 and any puzzle games or Theater Rhythm, Fight on Barline or Octopath Traveler 2 or Xenoblade 3's DLC Future Redeemed or Making of Karateka or Starfield or Pikmin 4 or Super Mario RPG or how Gran Turismo and Twisted Metal are nominated for Best Adaptation, and also Dave the Diver being nominated as an indie game, or Persona 5 Tactica, or Miasma Chronicles, or Alien Dark Descent and any tactics game, or any game released in December, or all of the layoffs that happened this year. But other than that, we are celebrating all games from across the industry and the people who make them. And here we have our first world premiere of the night. 3 white people talking about their personal games of the year. I hope you enjoy.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
How did you get through that with one take? Jesus.
Oh. I might have practiced a little bit earlier.
Hey, folks, and welcome to the post-game clarity end of 2023 Gametravaganza. Woo!
Woo!
Hey!
Let's go.
So it's funny because this is actually why we started the podcast. I think it was April or May this year that Dork came to us and said, hey, we should do like an end-of-year best of games video. And then I forgot how, but we kind of strong-armed him into doing a podcast instead. And then we started doing the podcast. And then it was like November, and like, are we going to do the end of games thing? And Dork's like, oh, you actually want to do that?
Yeah, if you also remember, we made a Twitter DM, and then Dork was like, I don't want to get Discord, guys. And we were like, but literally, how else are we gonna do this? And then you got Discord, and the rest is history.
The rest, as they say. Yep, we of course. How can 2 people not exist if they don't have a podcast? So that's why me and Drew had to be a part of a podcast now.
So I guess I'll explain how we're going to attempt to do this. Basically, we've each come up with 5 games of the year that we're going to talk about in turn, but then we're going to steal from what the Insert Credit podcast does, and we're going to try and rank all these games through discussion and argument just because it's fun, why not? And then afterwards, we got a bunch of honorable mentions, mostly from 2023, but then we're going to open up the floor, and maybe there are some games from other years that we've played that we really want to talk about. So we're going to try and keep it like a time limit on discussing each game, but if you've listened to any of our other podcasts, you know that we're probably not going to adhere to it.
Nah. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. Now, Dork or Drew, which one of you would like to take the honors and talk about your number 5?
Ooh, I think, Dork, I'm okay with you going first.
Oh, goody. Okay. So, to explain, I have to do some context here. So, what we're all doing is we all have like a top 5-ish, and we're going to add all those games into like a big, like master, like top 15 list-ish kind of thing. I am trying to prioritize games I've completed. So, for instance, I have a game in my honorable mention that is 100% better than this game, but I haven't finished it yet, so it doesn't quite earn that honor. So, without further ado, my 5th spot goes to Jacent. Jacent is, it's like a Journey-esque climbing game where you essentially start at like this, like bottom of this humongous like tower thing, like mountain thing, and there are like some climbing mechanics. You have to like just climb essentially all the way up. It's extremely linear though, which is kind of unfortunate. Like you can't really play around with the mechanics a lot, because there are some fun ones. You're able to like put down like the little like metal stakes in the wall every now and then, and you're able like to use like what like length of rope you still have to like swing over to like a new spot and stuff like this, or like go up and down on the rope and all that kind of stuff. but you can't really experiment with all that. You just kind of have to. You have to go in the spot you have to go, which is a little. It is a tad unfortunate. There's some collectibles here and there, which is cool. But what's really awesome is like the world building. I really don't like audio logs and like journal stuff a lot. I think it usually doesn't really like deliver for how much time you spend just like reading something. And I gotta admit, I was pretty impressed. Like, it isn't amazing by any means, but in terms of like a 5-hour game, like the level to which like they were able to get like me to care about these characters I've like never even like seen on screen before, and also just like the state of the world as it is currently with just all the information was really cool. So in that sense, it was totally worth going around to reading all that stuff, because eventually it added up, and I was like, okay, this is actually very, very interesting.
Jusant is actually on my honorable mentions list.
Ooh, okay, Dave.
I think, if someone picks a game that we have elsewhere, we should probably mention it, and then we can open up the discussion. Now, I only played about 30 minutes of it. Most of the games I'm going to cover, I've only played about 30 minutes of. That's just how I do things. I test games out, and then if I like them, I put them away for later. But it was. I loved the solitude of it. The climbing mechanics were really cool. It was kind of like ever since I played Grow Home back in like 2016, I was looking for other games to kind of use those, use the right and left trigger to go hand over hand games. And like, I think the only game that's really done that is the Grow Home sequel.
Yeah.
So, and Jusant was even better because the robot in Grow Home can climb on anything, but you're a human in this game, so you got to look for handholds, and you've got to be you've got to actually be smart about how you approach a lot of these climbs. And I liked early on that each new climb seemed to introduce kind of a new mechanic.
Yeah.
Obviously, eventually they would just start combining that, because you can't keep introducing things forever. Well, maybe you can't, Mario Wonder. But
oh my god.
But with that, yeah, like even in the first 30 minutes, I loved, like, when you get to like your first goal, that kind of offshoot tower, and you look down and you're like, whoa, I've come all this way, and just finding the next way to go. The world building didn't do much for me, but I liked the mystery of, okay, people were here, but no one's here now. Why?
Yep. See, yeah. So I think if you keep playing it, and like you again, it's hard, because I think initially all those logs and stuff are kind of boring, but it's almost like you kind of have to like trust that these are eventually going to pay off, and I totally think they do. And I also think the ending is really it's totally worth it. That whole ending sequence, I was like, this is really good. And I'd also say, surprisingly, I would like almost. There's a whole bunch of mechanics that get introduced, and it keeps adding on. So I think when you play it, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how every single climb, there's like, I wouldn't say every climb has something different, but it keeps adding stuff until the very end. I'll just say that.
Cool.
What is this game on?
This game is on PC for sure. I know it's easily on like PS4 and Xbox, but I don't know if it's on Switch or anything.
It is on the PS5, the Xbox Series X and Series S, and Windows.
Cool, maybe I'll pick it up this
exactly
month. Yeah.
I actually, funny enough, this morning when I looked at specials, it's now under $30, which is kind of my upper limit for wanting to spend on a new game. So maybe I'll grab it now, and it can be a stream in the next couple months. It'd be pretty good stream.
Yeah.
I will say it is priced pretty high. Like it's pretty short, which I appreciate. Especially, I'll talk about something soon that was the opposite. But it's pretty short, which I appreciate. But for that price, though, like I hope the audience who purchases it understands that this is like a journey kind of thing. Like it's not going to be very long, but hopefully it'll be rewarding in its own way.
Oh, and here's something really interesting as well. It's by Don't Nod, the people who made all the Life is Strange games.
Yeah.
The popular Life is Strange series, yeah.
Don't even, Drew. I knew you were going to do that. No, yeah, it is interesting because, like, you'd imagine that, like, these devs had some experience, like, with crafting any sort of, like, traversal system, like, for it to be, like, this okay. Again, there are issues every now and then, but it's still pretty good when you're on the right path. And, obviously, like, Life is Strange games don't have anything of the sort. So it's kind of impressive that they were able to, like, change gears, and have something this competent, like, right away.
I mean, they did do that. The name escapes me now. I've actually put it on my critique list. It's that Vampire Souls game they made.
It's called Vampire, yeah.
Oh, is it called Vampire?
Yeah.
Wow. Dun, 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 dun. Dave.
It has like a Y, though, and so it's edgy.
Oh, Vampire. Yeah. Okay,
but even still, like I would think like that isn't like a traversal game. It's more about like a choice. So even still, it's just impressive. But so how we're gonna? So we have like 15, like potential like games to put on this list. So I think right now I would put it right there in the middle. I doubt it'll stay there, but either way.
Okay, Jusant is our first game. Drew, what is your number 5?
Yeah, my number 5 pick is Final Fantasy 16, and I want to be very clear that this like barely made it onto my top 5 because the game is really good, but we're in a year that's so competitive. So usually a game just being really good like wouldn't be enough. Yeah. But I was also the only one of the 3 of us who finished this game.
I haven't even played it.
I mean, I tried. I'm sorry, but it didn't hook me. Sorry.
I know, but I think this game's M-rated world like fits surprisingly well, like into the greater Final Fantasy series. Because when I was seeing trailers for the game, and even like after I bought it, I thought that its like premise kind of sounds like an edgy fan fiction where it's like Final Fantasy, but dark now. But it handles itself with like a lot of really cool sincerity instead of cynicism, and it uses its M rating to lean into the politics of the world in a more complex way than earlier entries ever would have done. And so I like a lot of what it accomplished because it riffs on like a lot of classic Final Fantasy tropes really, really well. When I play Final Fantasy, I'm looking to get absorbed into somebody's vision for a new fantasy world with characters that bring aspects of the world to the forefront by virtue of their actions and their relationships with each other. And with the protagonist Clive being disgraced royalty, and with all the different kingdoms of the world having different relationships with each other that get explored throughout the course of the story and affect different parties and blah 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 blah, that like the game really does that. Like this is clearly somebody's new fantasy world. There are a lot of problems, like very samey side quests where you just like talk to someone and then you run somewhere and maybe kill something and then you run back and then you get whatever your reward is. And the combat can get a little bit samey, even though there are some pretty fun options. It doesn't change too much over the course of like 50 hours, which definitely is an issue. And the game's story is a little bit bloated, and it gets kind of more generic towards the end after all the amazing overlapping politics kind of get pushed to the side for a pretty basic JRPG type of ending. But like overall, it is a good package. Great writing and acting overall, especially from, I think the lead actor for Clive is Ben Starr. Really awesome dude. Great music, of course. Great emotional beats. And amazing boss fights, of course. People cannot stop shutting up about these boss fights for a reason. They're incredible. It's a good game, and it is a good entry in one of my favorite series, even if there are still ones that I like better. I think, like, just the fact that it's done something different, as Final Fantasy is often wont to do, means that it was worth exploring, and like this game has like a place in the year that it came out in. So I decided I would throw it on the list just because, it's a new Final Fantasy game. Yeah, that's freaking awesome.
When you were playing it, you sounded really excited about it. Now, I do have a question. You said it had a generic Final Fantasy ending. Do you have to go fight God?
Yeah.
No, it's not a spoiler. Like 90% of JRPGs have you go fight God at the end.
Well, it's the thing about it for me is just like you have all these amazing relationships between all these kingdoms and all these characters, and you have all these great like human conflicts, right? And then at the end, they're just like, "Oh, God was behind everything. Kill God." And I'm like,
that was
shut
actually,
up.
That was my problem with FF12, because I really liked the politics and the interpersonal relationships. And then, yeah, at the 2/3 mark, it's like, oh, well, we got to go fight God now.
Yeah, I just kept comparing the ending to the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles because it has a similar kind of bent, but the way that Xenoblade Chronicles does it, where it bases itself as more of a philosophical argument, and that's why you have to ramp up to killing God at the end. Like that, it just handled it so much better compared to this. But overall, it's a good entry, and
Cool.
yeah. So honestly, this could go towards the bottom of the best of the year list as far as I'm concerned as well. So I'm gonna say it can go under Jusant.
Okay. Dork, do you want to talk a little about why you fell off playing it?
I think it was just one of those things where I just chose like a bad time, and I had a bunch of other stuff I wanted to do. But I will say, it certainly didn't help, because like the last thing I remember doing was I won't swear. I'll try not to swear. A really stupid side quest that literally consisted of, hey, can you get some freaking like wood for this guy? And I walked like 20 feet, and he's like, here's some imaginary wood. And I go, thanks for the imaginary wood. And I bring the wood back. He goes, you're a real help around here. It's like, shut up. This is so stupid.
Yeah, side quests like that freaking suck. Yeah, and that's basically all the side quests in FF16.
Wow.
Like, okay, actually, I have a question then, because how I think of side quests, it should be used for something to explain or like expand upon the world a bit, expand upon a character, or just be like fun in its own right. Are any of them like along those lines?
Okay, yes. Quite a few of them are. There is this home base that the main characters have, and there's a lot of characters around there that you get some side quest change where the best part of them is like the dialogue and setting it up and then going to a new place where that character that normally is just in the hideout like has a place elsewhere in the world, like because of like where they used to live, that sort of thing. Or you'll encounter characters that have kind of fallen for commonplace ideologies throughout the game's world and take it out on you. For a certain plot reason. Obviously, I don't want to spoil too much for anybody that hasn't played it, mostly the listeners. And so plenty of the side quests are pretty good, like in the writing department, but it really is like the gameplay where it's just like, shut the fuck up, dude. Whatever.
Okay,
That's unfortunate.
Let me talk about my number 5. Now, I must admit, I do have a fear that for most of my top 5, one or both of you are going to go, Dave, what the fuck?
I'm
all right. I'm sitting up in my chair.
As I said when talking about Jusant, because of the way I play games, yet I haven't put more than half an hour into anything on my list. Actually, I was debating whether putting some games I streamed this year from this year on, but no, these are just games I've tried, but they hit me so hard that, it's like these are definite games I want to return to and play as soon as possible. But so number 5 is actually a free game on Steam. It is called Woo Loop. It is a knitting game.
I gotta look this up.
So have either of you played Picross?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, one of my favorite things about Picross, well, there's 2 things. One of them is at the end of every puzzle, even though it's simplistic, you have a picture. So it's kind of like that cool, like, ooh, look what I made kind of reward at the end of each puzzle. And the second thing I love about Picross is that I think it's one of those beautiful background games. You can do it while you're watching or listening to something. And Woo Loop kind of, it's not actually a puzzle game like Picross is a puzzle game. It is more of a pure background game. You're kind of following the arrows, you're following the numbers to create pictures with your yarn. You're looping them around little, steel pegs, and you're following the instructions, and then at the end it zooms out and you have a picture. And the music is just, it's very pleasant, it's very chill. it's fun to just, loop around and around and around. Some of them are insane in terms of how much you have to loop. And for most of the game, I thought I had to hold my left mouse button down to loop. But then later on, I learned that you only have to hold it down to originally take off. So I was getting a bit of carpal tunnel from doing that. But aside from that, it's just this beautiful, I could just see myself enjoying this while I'm doing something else. It's pleasant. It would be even cooler on a Steam Deck or a Switch or something handheld, so you could do it on the couch while something else is going on. But yeah, it's funny. There are heaps of games that are more game-like that could have taken my number 5 slot, but the more I thought about it, the more I just thought, I like what Woo Loop is. It's so different to most everything else I've played this year, so I think I need to give it its due.
Huh.
That's cool. I just looked it up and I installed it. It looks very fun. I won't lie. It looks cool. Also it's free, so yeah, it looks neat. I like it.
So where should we put this? With most of my list, I'm going to open it up because as I feel that my picks are not going to hit well. So if you want to put them near the bottom of the list, that's fine with me.
Bottom. Nah, you can. I mean, obviously, me and Dork both don't have any frame of reference.
I think it's only fair to put this on our bottom slot for right now.
Yeah.
I don't think it has to always be at the bottom, but at the same time, you and I clicked with Jasant, and I also think FF16 needs a little bit more of a nod.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No worries. We're actually moving along at a good pace. Dork,
excellent.
Number 4.
All right, number 4. It is Aliens: Dark Descent. So I just finished this today. I was playing. I was pretty much prioritizing this over everything else. I wanted to make sure I could finish it, and I think that speaks to how much I liked it to an extent. The Alien franchise, in terms of what video games it's able to produce, is pretty hit and miss. Obviously everyone likes Alien Isolation, but there's not a whole lot in the last 2 decades really that's been awesome.
Yeah.
And this came out of nowhere. I don't think anyone was I don't think this had a huge marketing thing, if any. I don't even remember it. I only remember seeing a Mandalore review, and I clicked off it in the first 30 seconds because I'm okay, this looks cool. I'll play it.
Right.
And I felt I really should try it because it looks so unique, and yeah, it really is. I guess I was expecting more of a tactics turn-based thing in XCOM, because again I didn't do that much research into it, but no, it's an RTS. It's a real-time strategy where you always have a squad, or I should say you choose a squad almost like XCOM, and then you go on mission excursion stuff, and yeah, everything is in real time. You control your squad around the map. It's as if you're controlling a small army in Age of Empires or something, or any other RTS. It's very interesting, and how you're basically exploring each individual map with these Marines, and then aliens are able to patrol certain areas. It's a lot more stealthy than I thought. It's very much like a stealth game, because you don't want to get caught by the aliens, because the moment they see you, a hunt will get triggered essentially, where a whole bunch of aliens will try to seek you out. And what's very cool is that in the mission, the alien aggressiveness meter increases if there's a hunt happening, and eventually so you'll always start every single mission on easy aggressiveness, then eventually it shifts to medium and then to hard. And then after that, you probably should leave. But I'll talk about that in a second, though. But okay. There's just a lot to explain with this game. It's hard to. So basically, your Marines will shoot automatically, but you control skills at the bottom in real time. So you'll press the space bar and shoot a grenade launcher or something. But even though it seems so simple, it's really hard. I'm kind of surprised how hard it is, because there's not that much control besides of where you place your Marines and what skills you choose to do once you're caught and stuff like that. But oh my god, it even has a time limit thing after a while, halfway through, where the planet will get bombarded if you don't finish in time. It's crazy. It utilizes the Alien IP really well. All of the visuals and the audio are exceedingly well done. The audio, especially, I'll be hearing the music and the specific like sound design like jingles in my head at least for a week. I've been hearing them nonstop this week because that's all I've been playing. So I'll be hearing this for a long time. The only thing is it's really cool that there's certain missions you're able to, you have to do like a mission at a time, and then you're able to like evac if like your squad is getting too hurt, or like if they're getting too stressed, and like, or like the alien like aggressiveness level is getting too much. You're able to evac and like, like go back to base, heal up, and then and like come back, and everything is as it was. So it's really cool in that regard. You're able to keep evacing and coming back. But the problem is though, there's two specific ways in which that kind of clash, and like one is eventually like halfway in the game, you have like a time limit essentially, where in 25 days, and you can only do like a mission per day, then like the planet will get like bombarded, and then you'll lose. I've looked it up, and yeah, it's a failure state. It's almost like Pikmin 1 essentially. So every day counts kind of thing. But the game is filled with so many problems and bugs and edge case issues that it makes doing a clean run really challenging, because if I didn't have the setting on where I had a bunch of autosaves, it would have been a nightmare, because the game is just crazy unoptimized. So you could easily have like a glitch happen, or there were 3 separate instances where like the game just did like a dumb game design thing. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not usually that blunt, but it was just outright stupid game design thing, and it totally effed me over. And it's like, well, I'm sure glad I'm not on a hard setting, because I was able to squeeze through still, but like it totally effed me over when it came to like resources and like days. Like it totally wasted 2 of my days, because how was I supposed to know this was going to happen on a first playthrough? There's just a whole bunch of stuff like that, and it's almost an exhausting game, because it just kept going on and on. 12 missions is too much. I think the game is too long, but at the same time, it's really cool that it even exists. Like, I don't even think I could compare this to anything. That's why it's so hard to talk about, because I don't even know how to compare this to anything. It's for sure its own thing. The only thing I could possibly like say is like, imagine a cross between like Pikmin 1 and like RTS, like Age of Empires. Like it feels like that. It's so interesting, like from the ground up, or like from its very foundation. It just, obviously like it goes on too long and has a whole bunch of small problems. That's why it's number 4.
It's the reason I laughed so hard when you mentioned the game name is because we've watched you playing this for the last few weeks, and it's funny how you're wrestling with it, because I think it was just a couple days ago you went on this huge rant about a few things that were really adding up, like little niggles that were adding up to big problems for you. And I'm like, at the time it was like, oh wow, but you're persisting, and you're like, no, because like when it all works, it's really good. And
it's such a cool game.
I tend to, maybe you both are like this, but it's like the interesting messes, or the games that are good despite themselves, are often more exciting than just something done really well.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I would totally be happy if it was like 10 missions and not 12.
Yeah.
Like I'd definitely like it more if it was a bit more, especially because if it is going to be like a Pikmin thing, right? And again, we just all talked about Pikmin, so we all have that in our brains. That's really short. So it obviously encourages, like, I'll try again. This game took me, it took me like 40 hours, and it took most people I saw who put in like a Steam review.
40 hours for 12 missions? Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably cut that down to like 35. I also have it idle, every now and then. So, but even still, like 30 plus hours, and all the reviews I saw like on Steam had at least that time, and they even have like a new game plus. And I'm just thinking, if the idea, so if it was a shorter game, for example, like Resident Evil, you're able to like learn about like its systems and like its ambushes, and then it clearly wants you to try again, and like all that knowledge helps you. But dude, I'm not going right back into this, dude. This was 30 hours. There's no way. It's really cool game. I like it. But, it's not the type where it's like, all right, like now you know about all this kind of stuff. Use it to your advantage. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going back in. I spent so much on it.
The funny thing is that when you do decide to go back, you'll probably forget a lot of that because so much time will have passed.
I want to say there's no way because some of that stuff really pissed me off. But I mean, I'd say you're probably right. There's just three, yeah. But yeah,
So,
again, there's the fact that it exists though. This thing exists. What a weird, cool, like licensed game this is.
So where do you want to put it in our list?
Oh, at the top of all of this. I hate it and I love it. I love it.
What you're saying is this game's great and I hate it. That's what you're saying.
No, this game sucks and I love it.
That's awesome. Oh, do you think it deserves to go up at the top?
Of what we have now, I'd say, yeah, I do, yeah.
Damn.
Well, again, at the top of our list, is my own game of Jusant, and I have that higher than, I have Aliens higher than that on my list, so of course,
Yeah, makes sense.
If you had put like FF16 higher than Jusant, I would say under FF16, but you didn't, so you screwed up.
Damn.
So good job.
You know what? That's fine.
And that's fair. And you know what? I doubt it's going to hit the top echelons of our list as we keep going forward.
True.
Yeah.
Drew.
Okay. So,
Shut up.
okay, Drew, number 4.
All right. Dorkaxe, you want to know what my number 4 pick is?
I think I know what it is.
All right, say it with me. 3, 2, 1. Pikmin 4.
No.
No?
No, it's not.
I said, oh, come on, Dorkaxe, come on. Anyway.
It's not that. I know it's not that.
Yeah, it is.
You have
I thought
Pikmin
about
4
this
as
a
your
lot.
4th?
Because it's...
No, you don't.
Because it's my 4th pick, you see? I did it for the joke, because it's funny. But I did think about this a lot. And you want me? I'm going to read my little paragraph that I wrote now, okay? Even if it's in my lower ranking of Pikmin games, whenever a Pikmin game comes out, it's always such a unique game compared to its contemporaries. There's a lot of debate I'm sure me and Dork will have over all the different editions the game has and if they even matter because of the limited audience. But Pikmin 4 is a content-rich game and does push Pikmin's overall potential forward in a lot of smart ways. I came away being really impressed with the visuals. I loved using the dog character Ochi and all of the quality of life stuff that makes you as efficient as possible. And it's a great game, and everybody should go buy Pikmin games and play them because now you can get all 4 of them on the Nintendo Switch, or you could pirate them for free. Whatever you want to do, I don't give a fuck. Play Pikmin.
And scene. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, so Drew and I have talked, and like we were gonna like make sure that we like each of us didn't have the exact same thing on each other's lists because obviously we've played a few Nintendo games that we each like, and yeah, I would say like Pikmin 4 is really really good. It definitely has issues, a whole bunch of which I won't even get into because it's just kind of tiring to talk about all those issues over and over. So I'm just not even gonna think about it. But yeah, I'll admit though, like Ochi for sure. I think he's a really good addition.
Yeah, dude, I literally. I've been working on my script for the Pikmin 4 video, and I cannot, like, Ochi's gotta get his own section, dude. Like, he deserves it. He's such a good boy. So I'm super excited to write that section. I love using Ochi because he's like a mix between an individual Pikmin but like a captain, because you can switch to him or you can just give him Pikmin commands. And it's just like, it's just so smart. And the Pikmin are like as quick and they're as not stupid as they could probably possibly be at this point. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just such a cool game.
I think as well, even if it was garbage, and in some ways, I think we can each agree it's not amazing. It's a new Pikmin game.
After a decade, yeah, exactly.
Like, oh my god, finally.
I know.
Now, would it be like a spoiler for your video if I asked you where this ranks among your favorite Pikmin games?
Yeah, but that's only going to be at the beginning. So I'm putting it, if we're looking at a tier list where we have S tier down to D tier, right? Pikmin 4 goes in high A tier above Pikmin 2, and then the other Pikmin games are in S. Okay. So just imagine the whole tier list and everything's at the top because they're all Pikmin games. So yeah, Pikmin 4 is
Pikmin
like
Bloom. Even
Pikmin
the one on the
Bloom is-
3DS, right?
Damn it. Okay, those ones are C tier. Fuck you. But Pikmin 4. It's so good, and yeah, it made me so happy that it was out. And even despite the issues it has on this like replay I've been doing, like I don't really mind those issues revisiting it already. Like I'm just kind of vibing on this alien planet. It's kind of awesome. So as much as this game made like my freaking jaw drop on the floor and made my like eyes bug out for like 40 hours, the only reason it's at number 4 is because of a funny Pikmin 4 fourth pick joke, but also just because I did play some other games where other aspects about it like just really like took me fully off guard in ways that a fourth Pikmin game can't really take me off guard, you know? That being said, Pikmin 4, I'm putting Pikmin 4 at the top of the list now. Pikmin sweep, okay?
Sure.
I agree. It deserves it, yep.
Yeah.
I think out of everything we said, like, yeah, I mean, again, if I was being completely, like, you know, I'm not going to collaborate, like, with Drew, I would have probably had this at, like, number 3 for me. Like, it's really good. But that's not how we're doing it, because that's boring, you know? So I can just acknowledge, yeah, but I have other stuff, you know?
Okay.
How crazy would it be if we continued the meme and at the end, Pikmin 4 was 4th place?
That actually, can we try to do that? That would be really fucking funny.
It wouldn't make any sense because you apparently it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't work, Drew. It wouldn't work.
I'll bring it up if like coincidence happens and it ends up being fourth. Now it's time for Dave. My number 4 game is Turbo Overkill. I'd say now maybe in the past 10 years, there has been a resurgence of like 90s shooters, FPS games that have been made by people who obviously grew up playing them and have made some pretty cool entries. You know, there's like Dusk and a Medieval, and those are both by the same group, but I'm sure there are others. But Turbo Overkill is actually by Apogee, which was a huge developer back then. They developed Duke Nukem 3D, which was one of the ones I played a lot in the 90s. And this game is... it made me think of Shovel Knight in the fact that when Shovel Knight came out, there was this discussion about it where it was like, it's evoking the memory of a NES game. But if you went back and played NES games, you'd realize that it's doing stuff with the visuals, the animation, the mechanics, and the music that those games could never have done. So, you know, it's more painting a picture of what you remember an NES game being instead of what an NES game is. And Turbo Overkill is kind of like that for 90s FPS games, wherein like it's so slick and beautiful and the sound is so chunky and the movement is so fluid. It's actually more of a movement-based shooter. You have a chainsaw leg where you can kind of grind along the ground and slide into enemies, and then it introduces like double leaps and wall runs, and I assume there's all this other kind of movement tech as well. But it's just the way it looks, the way it sounds. It's kind of got a kind of cyberpunk Shodan vibe. Like the enemy is like a malevolent AI, and there's a bit of horror in that they're like taking over people. They're like infecting people, and a lot of the grunts you are murdering are people infected with this virus, and they don't even look human anymore. But it's just, yeah, the way it looks, the way the levels are designed around a lot of the movement tech. The third level, it gets very vertical. You keep going up and up, and actually it's very dangerous to use the chainsaw slide because you'll end up going over the edge. So I had to focus on my weapons a lot more in that level. It's just like, I mean, the tone is very, you know, grim, dark, and gritty and violent, but it was just a joy to play, especially as someone who grew up on those games.
Cool.
Hell yeah, that sounds freaking cool.
I know, like they call it like the boomer shooter, and yeah, like I've played like a few of them too. I played Ion Fury and Forgive Me Father, and it's like, yeah, honestly, like those are really fun, and I almost feel like the new way of doing FPS games kind of like paints this idea of what all they can be. when it's really cool to see all these developers go, no, actually they can be like really fast and like fun, and have all these cool like movement options and stuff. Yeah, it looks really cool. It looks exactly as you described it, which is it's trying to like evoke that, but it clearly, there's no way they'd be able to pull this off on like freaking like 90s hardware. It'd be impossible.
Yeah. Especially because like the second level, it's like on a dock in the rain and there's like neon reflecting off the water. It's probably one of those games that if you had ray tracing, it would look even better.
Yeah.
But now with where to place it, I'd like to place this above Jusant and below Aliens Dark Descent.
That's fair.
Cool. I'll put it there.
You're okay with that? Okay.
That's fine.
So for my number 3 entry, I have Showgunners. This was a huge surprise. This was a huge surprise. So I am pretty into like the tactical, like turn-based XCOM, kind of games, and I was looking forward. I had a whole bunch on my plate essentially. I had like this. I had Miasma Chronicles. I had like Marvel's Midnight Suns, like Gears Tactics, and also like an XCOM game. I had a bunch of them, and I was like, I have to start like working on this. So I thought, oh, like Showgunners like looks like an indie, like whatever, I guess I'll try that out. And holy crap, it hooked me so much. And I was a huge fan of Mutant Year Zero, even though there's a whole bunch of problems with it. And I wanted something like more like that, except like better. And that's why I was looking forward, to like Miasma Chronicles, because that's like the next game from like the Mutant Year Zero devs. And honestly, I got everything I wanted and more with Showgunners. Like, they didn't have any of the flaws that like Mutant Year Zero did. Almost every single thing I hated about like that like style of game was not present in Showgunners. Like, all the weapons, like you didn't have to like shuffle the weapons back and forth between each character depending on the like the freaking battle. No, that wasn't there. All the weapons were like like character specific, which was honestly good because you're not in the menus as often. Like the whole like theming where you're on like this crazy like murder TV show. It's almost like a reality like competition essentially. Like that's the whole like window dressing. You're on like a competition called Homicidal All Stars, and you're just supposed to like survive and like keep like fucking like murdering these prisoners. Like you're like the character like you and everyone else you control are called contestants, and then everyone like that you happen to kill are like prisoners essentially, and this is like the like fucked up like justice system of this new like cyberpunk world that you happen to exist in. All of like the levels are like themed around something because it's a fucking TV show. They're gonna try to make everything look like distinct each episode essentially. So it's an easy excuse to do so many cool things with like the environment. Like there isn't any time where you're like, why is this like spike trap in the world? Well, it makes sense in this one because they're trying to make a fucking TV show look exciting. So it's so perfect in like its backdrop and how it like feeds into like the kind of gameplay that you're going to do anyway. And the actual gameplay itself was so cool. All the skills all the characters had were really interesting and they handled really well. Just absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe how into it I was. I think I played this for like 30 or like 40. I don't remember how many hours into it or so, but there even was like a free DLC. And usually, I can't play a game and its DLC all at once. I get pretty burnt out at games. But I was like, no, all of it right now, all of it. And it slotted in really well at the end. What a crazy surprise. This was such a good game, and I'm so looking forward to seeing if they make a sequel to this. Because honestly, holy shit, for like a first outing, this is insane.
And this is just your number 3.
This is my number 3. Yeah, I can tell I sound like really excited, but yeah, it's so good because it was so surprising. I wasn't expecting this at all. I was just thinking it was going to be like, oh, I'll play this, see if I like it. But then like the real thing will be like Miasma Chronicles. Here we go. And it couldn't have been more opposite. More opposite. If anything, playing Showgunners like showed me, oh, here's how it can be done. Awesome. And then I went to freaking like Miasma Chronicles. I'm like, oh, you guys haven't learned anything from the first game, have you? You did all the same problems again, except maybe 1 or 2 improvements. And it's just wild to me. I'm sorry. I love Showgunners so much. I will stand it. This is what makes me so frustrated. This could have easily been in like a category in like the Game Awards, but how it's not is crazy because of course there's just the strategy and freaking like simulation side of things, which is so way too broad of. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But still, the only issue is it's called Showgunners when it was originally supposed to be called Homicidal All-Stars, like the TV show in the game. And I think that's a way better name. Homicidal All-Stars sounds amazing opposed to Showgunners. Like, oh, it's like it's like a meme on like the showrunner. Okay, that's all I got. It should have been called Homicidal All-Stars.
and well, to be fair, both titles don't really tell you what the game is.
Not at all, no. I was going to say, at the very least, though, Homicidal All-Stars has a reason to exist because it's the name of the TV show in the game, you know? Whereas, like, Showgunners is just clearly, like, a made-up thing that just isn't, like, related to the thing at all.
It's a pun.
Both of those title puns just kind of sound more like a 90s beat-em-up game to me. Like, if you just said, what kind of game do you think this is?
You know what? Yeah, that's honestly fair. Awesome game. I want to put this under Pikmin 4.
Okay.
Ooh.
I know. I love it. I love it. It's so good.
So and there's nothing wrong with coming a little bit under a Pikmin game. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, Drew, number 3. Woo!
Yeah, my number 3 is the port of Ghost Trick Phantom Detective that they released earlier this year. Yeah, Dave's gonna know all about this one.
Yep. And
just to get this out of the way, I don't care if this is a port because they had to change the whole thing to not be made for the DS anymore and put it on consoles. And also, it's a cult classic that nobody's played before anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to include here. And because this game is so special, like it's not often that you can play a game and say, I just played a game that straight up like never existed before. But Ghost Trick just does that. Kind of like its sister series Ace Attorney. Obviously, Ace Attorney fits into the visual novel genre, but handles it in such a unique way that still manages to stand out even now. And likewise, Ghost Trick fits into the puzzle genre, but the setup of using ghost possession to manipulate killer Rube Goldberg machines in real time is just like such a genius, unique premise. And pairing it with a amnesia conspiracy storyline and wacky characters does a lot to motivate and inform the puzzles. So the whole thing feels like a true one-of-a-kind experience that's very cohesive, and I can really recommend it. Especially because the cherry on top is that they got the same guy that made like the freaking Beautiful Joe soundtrack to make these sick dance beats to go over the whole thing, and it just makes it sound so like 10 times as exciting as the game already was. It's so freaking cool. Get this game wherever you want and binge play it. Like you will have like probably one of the best story experiences with any game that you ever had.
I'm looking forward to streaming it at some point in the future. Like
yes, dude.
I last played the game maybe 10 years ago, maybe over 10 years ago. I got it on iOS when they ported it to iPhone. I was lucky where a lot of companies were doing this at the time, especially Capcom, where the game was free, but you only got like the first level, and then you had to buy the rest of the game as multiple pieces of DLC. Oh. But there was one point where all the DLC went on sale, and I pretty much bought the entire game for $5, and then I played it on my phone over like a month, which was very similar to the DS because you're using the touchscreen. But I remember the animations of the characters being amazing. Every time, like the detective would walk in, he'd do like a little dance that was always really cool.
Yeah, dude, I love that guy. Yeah,
I remember that even up to the final moment of the game, there were just so many really cool reveals and twists. Like it's a very well told story, and it had Missile, which is Shu Takumi's Pomeranian that he tries to put in as many games as he can, and is like.
Oh, is that his real dog?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That makes it even better because the dog character is like such a little adorable little guy in this game. He's so cool.
Yeah, Missile's the best.
Yeah. The other thing about it too is even though, like, if I described that you have to like start from the beginning of a 4-minute sequence, and you're gonna have to like start it over again in order to like solve the puzzles every time. I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, brother," but the truth is, like, you really don't get sick of it, because even getting like figuring out like the next one step forward, even if you have to start again after that, like, you're gonna figure out the coolest thing you've ever seen in your freaking life. Like, this isn't a spoiler at all, but one of the things that you have to do is you have to possess a trash can, so that when a person puts a napkin up to the wall, you can flip the trash can lid open and get a tomato can to squish into the napkin and put a circle on it. So then the guy will flush the napkin with the circle on it, and then that'll tell another character in another place, like it'll give them their little signal to do their little thing. And it's like, that is like the craziest thing. I felt like such a genius for putting together this game's like own cartoon logic, basically, to like progress through this weird puzzle. Like, it's just such a genius game. Yeah, and just between the crazy puzzles and all the different characters doing their own things, and just like the mystery story on top of all of that, like, it's just such a cohesive package. And like, unlike Ace Attorney, where it's pretty clear that the way to do a sequel is to just have more cases, you know, Ghost Trick is like, you literally, I mean, you could do like a sequel where it's just a completely different cast of characters, but I almost like don't want a sequel, just because this game is just like, just so cool and singular, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, if there was a sequel, it would be in that world with those mechanics, but like a completely different story. Maybe a cameo here and there, but its own thing.
Right. And, you know, maybe they might try to do like maybe a sequel be worth pursuing now, just because it's been so long. But also, Shu Takumi creates these really unique games, and then he got asked to make like 1 million Ace Attorney sequels, and he was like, I can't stand this shit anymore. I'm out. So, you know, maybe it's also okay, just for you know, the visionary director's sake, that this game is so singular. I'm glad it's like so much more widely available now. Yeah. I think that's the important thing about this 2023 port, is that everybody should get this game like wherever they want to and just play it.
And that was the issue. There were so many great games on the DS, a lot of them utilizing the DS's strengths to make them even better games. And most of that library has been relegated to now this dead console, and you can't really play them anymore.
Yeah, so it's really glad that this already cool classic game got out of there. Yeah. So yeah, Ghost Trick freaking blew me away. Like, wow.
Where do you want to put
it? Don't say it.
I want to put it under Pikmin 4.
Really?
I'm going to put it above Pikmin 4. I'm going to put it above Pikmin 4.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
All right. This fucking
do you have
2008 game gets the nod, huh?
Dork, since we're talking about Shu Takumi, do you have an objection?
No, I think Drew is smart. If they were to place it below Pikmin 4, I'd be like, how about one more below under Shogunners? But I can't ask them to put it 2 below their pick. That's nuts.
Okay.
That's fair.
So that was a pretty shrewd move there, Drew.
I'd be playing 15-dimensional chess,
which is called NES.
What?
True.
I don't know. I just thought of something stupid to say that rhymed.
Drew, That's you awesome. Are the ultimate hype man. You will go with whatever anyone said. Like, true, dude. That's so true. Like, what are you talking about, Drew?
That's the spirit of improv. I have to say, yes, and Earthbound is Game of the Year 2023. Yeah.
Wait. You're confusing me, because earlier you said a group of white people together is called a podcast, but now you're saying a group of white people together is called an improv group?
What's the difference?
Wait, hang on. Dave, are you like subtly making the joke of like, oh, like what do you call like a grouping of like, of like a goose, like it's or whatever, and for like white guys it's called a podcast? Is that the joke you were making?
Or an improv group. I've heard that one too.
That's funny.
both of them are unfortunately terribly accurate.
Yeah, yes, they are.
I'm actually not white. I'll just have you guys know.
What? Plot twist of the freaking millennium, bro.
Anyway, you shouldn't be doing that, because I actually am white. So we'll cut that and we'll. Anyway, so Dave, can we hear your number 3 pick?
This is an interesting one. It's a puzzle game that came out a couple months ago called Station to Station. It is a game where you have to connect, let's see if I can remember, like you want to get bread to a train station, so you have to connect the mill to like the place where they turn the grain into dough, and then you have to turn that to the place that wants it. So you're kind of creating infrastructure, but in a very simplistic way by laying down train tracks. And of course, the train tracks cost money. So, if you have to build bridges to go like over hills and that, it's going to cost a lot. But if you can wind the track down like the hill, then it's not going to cost as much. And every time you connect things together, you get a bunch of money, but the land kind of blooms like, a game like Flower, where the levels start very drab and there's hardly any soundtrack. And then the more you do, the more the level comes alive. There's color. The music builds over the course of the level. So by the end, when it says congratulations, I would press OK and not exit the level and actually just zoom in and observe like how everything looked as the trains were just going along, because the game is also it's made up of voxels and it's got this beautiful lighting engine. And it just looked so gorgeous when everything was done that I just wanted to move the camera around and watch what I created, which has never happened in any puzzle game ever.
That's freaking awesome,
wow.
Dude.
With how like you're describing it, it almost reminds me of like the sensation you get after you complete like a Zachtronics puzzle, where you just kind of want to watch it. Is it anything close to that?
No, well, like, again, only playing the game for half an hour, like, all the mechanics have not revealed themselves. The puzzles are still pretty simplistic, but every level it was building, like in terms of, suddenly you got multiple hubs and you have to connect multiple things to one hub, and, you're doing this multiple times, and also there's like a secret mission, whereas can you come in under budget, or can you do it with only so much track laid? There's really tough challenges. So I imagine as you go through the game, you get a lot better at the game. The game asks more of you, like any good puzzle game. And then probably you can come back and go, oh, I think I can do this thing.
Huh. It also kind of reminds me of, I was streaming De Blob earlier this year, and what you were describing with the environment being like really drab and then getting like way more vibrant sounds like very analogous to that, because that's such like any game that finds a way to kind of integrate that kind of idea, like it's always so satisfying to like just behold.
Yeah, I love, like I brought up Flower because that's one of my favorite games, and that's kind of the whole point of Flower, to rebloom the world. It's funny because I can't really think of other examples. The Blob is one, but I know I've played other games where that's kind of not the mechanic, but that's the result of how you play the game. And I've always really enjoyed, I think, because Wooloop had a similar idea. I think I like puzzle games, especially where there's like a tangible effect once I'm done with the puzzle. Like I can almost sit back and go, I did that.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And bringing up Zachtronics, often that will have that affect those games, because often the victories are so hard fought to get to that solution. You sit back and go, oh man, how did I get through that thing?
Well, plus, like, and like depending on the game, it just looks really cool. Like I'd say like Opus Magnum, all your like gears going around everywhere, it can look really like visually pleasing. So I was just wondering if it was anything like that.
Well, just the way the game looks, I really recommend you like watch a trailer with its voxels and its lighting engine. It just looks so, the word I used is cozy. I don't know if graphically this could be put on the Switch just because it seems to use some heavy-duty tech to get like this lighting and the voxels working. But if it could, even if I got a Steam Deck, it would be just this lovely like couch handheld game. Just a really nice cozy atmosphere in terms of what the finished product is.
It looks cool, yeah. I have a fascination for trains like in games like this, so honestly I kind of want to try it, because like what you're describing sounds cool, where it's like, oh, I have to make sure to stop here to get the grains for this guy or whatever. Sounds neat.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And now comes the time where we're probably going to get into our first argument, because I want to put this under Ghost Trick.
Dave.
Ooh.
Dave.
You can't put this above friggin' Pikmin, dude. You can't
put this
do
above
that.
Showgunners, dude.
You can't do that to me.
Dave. What the fuck, man?
You can put it above Aliens. You can put it above Jusson. You can put it above Final Fantasy, but you're not putting it above friggin' Pikmin 4, okay, buddy?
Or Showgunners.
So what, between Showgunners and Aliens Dark Descent?
That's fine. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Get that shit out of my face.
Well, that was everything I hoped it would be when I sparked this little flame.
Honestly, though, I know, like we always say it, but it's super cool how all of us play, our own, like we all have our own interests and our own, like specialty kind of stuff. So it is cool that it's on the list, but I'm still offended that you thought it would be that high. But yeah.
The arrogance. This dude walks down to the pie shop every day and sits in his ivory throne and eating his pies and thinks that he can pull up here and be like, yes, I've just eaten a delightful crisp. Let me put this freaking train game at number 2 on the list under Ghost Trick.
So,
yeah.
I know Dave. I know when he made this list, he was laughing when he put it at number 3. He's like, I can't wait to hear these fuckers react to this.
Funnily enough, my number 3 was not that. I definitely thought Woo Loop would be that. And actually, I think my number 2 will be that, just for a bit of foreshadowing.
Oh, boy.
So we're going to have some feisty debates.
Well, we're into the nitty gritty now. Number 2s. Let's
Let's go around.
Dork, please.
I will drop my number 2 on you if you want, like on your chest. So here's my number 2. All right, Resident Evil 4 remake, baby.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Resident Evil 4 remake is amazing. So yeah, it is a remake. So of course you have the actual like original game was so good in its own right. Like good job for not totally messing it up. I guess you have that angle to it. But oh my gosh, it is so crazy how, because I again, like when the whole trailer dropped, I was thinking this doesn't look anything like RE4. All the changes look stupid. I was thinking there's no need for this. RE4 is perfect. It's perfect. It's fine. But I really came around. There are some changes that I don't totally agree with, but there are some other ones that are really, really cool. Like pretty much the entire like knife system, where you are able to like stealth and use up all your knives. Works really dang well when you have a knife fight later on. Even though I really liked the quick time event like knife fight with Krauser in the first game, I also really liked the more intimate, realistic knife fight of like the remake. It's amazing. I'm so happy that we have 2 Resident Evil 4 games that are amazing, and you can choose either one of them and have a fantastic time. Yeah, it's extremely impressive. Like, wow, you guys can just do this, Capcom? You can basically make the game again, except like a little bit, or just like a more like modern audience. If only you could do that for everything, because geez, like this is perfect. This is everything that I think anyone like realistically like was gonna ask for. The only thing is like anyone who's upset about, oh, you can't like look up Ashley's skirt, or they didn't have the line about her boobies or something. It's like, listen, I actually really like the changes when it came to like the dialogue. I think Leon is way more of a badass, and I always loved Leon in like the original game. I always really liked his lines, but here he seems somehow even cooler. It's incredible. Oh, I can't say enough about it, and I don't want to get into all the specifics, but RE4 Remake, really, really good. Happy it exists now.
No, I was still on Twitter when this came out, so I do remember you complaining about the game until a certain point, and then you were like, wait a minute, these changes are really cool, and then you like fell in love with it. So it was cool to see that transition. What I remember mostly from being on Twitter at that time was Mousely. That's hard to say. Where suddenly all these cartoonists and artists were drawing Ashley as a little mouse, and just all this fan art erupted, and it was one of those, bastions of internet creativity that I just love to see like erupt out of the ether and take hold.
Yeah, it's interesting because so this is only tangentially related to what you just said, so I apologize, but talking about Ashley, so she was modeled off a real actress from I think a European country, and the same thing happened for Jill in the RE3 remake. It's really weird, honestly, that this is just going to be how it is from now on, because it's just easier to have someone's face to be a to have a real face to work from. So here's the person's face, and you're able to adjust things where you need to adjust them, but it makes it kind of weird in a sense, because there's artists out there who do certain things, and it's this is just art of that actress, this real person now. It isn't even a character. This is just that person.
I remember that conversation came up with Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, the 2001 film, because there is a character in that who basically looks like Ben Affleck. And even back then, people were going, well, wait, you can just copy the likeness of an actor for a 3D creation? So it's amazing that that's becoming more and more prominent. There's actually I can't even remember the name of it, but there's a really good movie about that came out in 2013. I think it's a French film about how all the actors signed away their rights except for the lead actress, who was the Kevin Spacey's wife in House of Cards, Robin something, I think her name is.
Robin Wright.
That's it. And her and Tom Cruise are the only actors who haven't signed away their rights yet. Tom makes a cameo in the film, and most of the film takes place in this virtual world, so it's all weirdly animated. Very, very odd movie, but it's funny how even a decade ago, that was on the minds of filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And it'll certainly be a thing we're just going to keep seeing over and over. I'm sure, each of you guys haven't seen Death Stranding, or you guys haven't played Death Stranding yet.
I
but
haven't.
That's a really bad example, in my opinion, of it. But, hopefully it'll be that proving.
That's done with consent, though. Every actor in that was basically gave the okay to be in that game.
Sure. Even the RE stuff is with consent. They're hired on, to use their likeness. So it is consent. I just mean in terms of anyone who's using that as art, for something else online. You are now making art not just of a character, but of a person now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to say it.
No, I get you now.
Okay. Yeah.
I was kind of, I guess, missing the core of the argument there, but yeah, no, that is a bit of a minefield.
Yeah. It's just you happen to mention the whole Mousely. That is, what the fuck? Mousely? How do you say that?
Yeah. I used to be
Drew, try to say this.
I used to be able to say it pretty easily, but
no, it's Mouse plus Ashley.
Mousely.
Oh, I think I remember seeing that. Mousely.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
So where would you like to put RE4 Remake in our list?
What's the highest game?
Ghost Trick.
Higher than that. Well, yeah. Higher than that.
Ooh, I don't know. I've got a problem.
Ooh.
See, okay. Here's my only argument, right? If it was anything original, I would probably say below. But again, these games aren't exactly new or anything. So, and if anything, I'd say RE4 Remake has more work put into it than this port of Ghost Trick, which is why I think it should be higher.
That's a good argument. But what were you gonna say, Dave?
Well, I don't know, just it feels because it is a remake. I mean, yeah, you can have the argument that Ghost Trick is just a port or a remaster if you want to get technical, which I find superior to remakes. That's a whole nother conversation. But I don't know. It's just part of it is I haven't played the RE4 remake, so I can't comment on what the game is. It's just that Ghost Trick is so good.
Yeah, Ghost Trick is like
volumes.
Insanely goated with the sauce, dude.
Yes, sure. You know, like whatever. But I'm just saying, right? Everyone agrees it's an amazing remake, and it isn't just like an amazing it's an amazing game in its own right. I don't think it should be winning any like Game of the Year awards because it is a remake, but that's a whole other argument that should be its own category, I think. But I think if it was like, for example,
but you do think it should be high on this list for the best game of the year, though, even though it shouldn't be winning any Game of the Year awards.
I was gonna say right, because the only thing that it would go higher or like lower than is Ghost Trick, it should totally be above Ghost Trick. But if it was an argument between like this and Pikmin 4, I could see it. If it was between like this and Mario, I could see it. But I'm sorry, I really don't feel like it should go below Ghost Trick.
Oh, fair enough. And actually, you brought up the point. Was RE Remake up for any category in the Game Awards?
It was up for the Game of the Year.
Game of the Year.
Oh, really? I must have missed that.
It's probably not going to win, honestly, which I'm okay with because as I've said, we'll get to that later on, right?
Okay, so number 2's Move Along. Drew, dump your number 2 on us.
My number 2 is, this is where Thirsty Suitors gets to sit.
I was wondering.
Thirsty Suitors is an indie game that it popped out like, when did it come out? Like middle of October, basically. And it's a little indie game that is a little bit too big for its britches. It's got a lot of issues, like the skateboard controls aren't super great. And the quick time events and the combat were a little bit thin by the end. And so honestly, I'm going to be okay with this going lower on the general list, but the reason that it's on my personal top 5 is because the writing and story that this game tells is very important to me. It's very much for me. You know, the story about a queer girl returning home to right her many wrongs against her family and her friends and her ex-partners, and it handles like family cultural heritage and the generational trauma that can come along with being an immigrant family, and as well as many queer issues. It handles all of them in such a sincere and candid way, while also just using the characters to be a very funny and cleverly written game, you know? I really felt the emotions between Jala fighting all of her exes, as well as all of the levity that's brought by the insane variety of scenery that pops up during, they call them psychodrama battles. I loved all the scenery that popped up during all of those. And I was laughing my ass off when I was doing the cooking mini games, and I was trying to get more points by complimenting my South Asian mom, and the game pulled out a random effect spinner for how effective that would actually be. I was laughing my ass off every time that would happen. It talks about all of these topics with this like familiar irreverence. Like you can tell real people with these real experiences wrote the game, which is why they can be so cheeky about it while also being so sincere. And they built an emotion-based combat system to fit this premise perfectly. I know a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, oh, so this is like Scott Pilgrim cross Persona, cross Life is Strange woke edition or whatever. But like, it's so cohesive. Like, while it's flawed, the positives and short play times really make this one of the best games that I played this year, because it really connected with me personally. Because I could see myself in the writing after so many queer voices spend so much time getting shafted all the time. So this game really made a difference for me this year, and that's why it's so high on my personal list. But if we're talking about the full package of the game, I can definitely I definitely do think it needs to go a little bit lower on the overall list, but being in like the top 15 games of the year, like I feel like that's very high, especially this year.
Now, Dork played this as well. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I agree with Drew a lot. It's I'd say if I had my list exactly how it is without any like collaboration with Drew, I would have probably had this at 5. I really liked it. It is really short, which is good, but I totally agree that it like the combat and like the mini games are really good for the first half, and then they kind of don't evolve. So you're kind of like left with, yep, I'm still doing this stuff. So it's kind of like I just wish there was like a little bit more, even like with the cooking. All I could think on like the last huge like cooking thing, which I really liked because the characters and the writing is so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All I could think though is like, man, I'm still doing these exact same QuickTime events. I wish it like ramped it up to make it way harder or something, or just like you're doing anything else besides the same exact stuff. But also, like Drew said, like the skateboarding stuff really sucked. I didn't do any of the skateboarding because there's a whole bunch of like side missions. There's a whole bunch of like side missions you can do, and I love skateboarding, but it just felt really bad. But yeah, even all that aside, like the dad character almost makes up. I put a review on Steam saying like the dad character is worth the price of admission on his own.
Yeah, he's so funny.
He's so funny, but it's also like you said, it seems so genuine. Like I really liked just hearing how he talked with his daughter. It was just fun just to see how good of a dad and how he was navigating, like having like to deal with his wife's family, and it was just really fun. I'm not any of this, right? So I'm not queer. I'm white. So all of this to me wasn't anything that I am, but I still really liked it. So I think that's a huge positive.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like if you tell a good story, that's how people can like learn to empathize with other groups of people. Like there's so much stigma around all of these types of issues, queer issues, and obviously even people just being people of color gets so politicized for no reason. So just telling it like a genuine, sincere story that encompasses so many of these issues can really help to like even just break down the wall a little bit. Something else that I will say just to add on to your praise of the dad character is going back to the random spinner thing. When they pull the spinner out for you to compliment your mom, it's basically like either she will, if you get a bad space on the spinner, she will get actively like pissed off at you for trying to suck up to her, or she'll give you like a little passive aggressive like quit back for you to get like a multiplier, right? But when you cook with the dad, it's basically between him like feeling good about himself or getting sheepish that you tried to compliment him, which is so funny because they use the exact same game mechanic to fit in with a different character. It's like, in terms of the writing, this game really does make the most of the small resources that it has. I think that's another thing I can really praise it for. Dave, I know you said you bounced off of this after a little bit, but I really would encourage you to try to get like at least an hour or two into the game if you ever get a chance, because this game really deeply like just impressed me. Yeah.
Right.
But like I said, Dork is completely right. The QuickTime events suck, and that's because I'm a Paper Mario fan, and that game has the best QuickTime events ever. And the skateboard controls suck. So we're gonna have to put this. We could put this. Can I put it above Final Fantasy 16?
Dang, that's low. I was even thinking perhaps maybe like above Aliens.
Oh, if you want to put it above Aliens, yeah, let's pool our vote there. Yeah, you got any problem with that, Dave?
None whatsoever. Station to Station is above it. Woo!
Woo! Cool. That's, what? Fair enough.
Fair.
Mindless RPG can go below the really thought-provoking puzzle game.
Well, I wouldn't say thought-provoking, but yeah, it's something I picked, so it's important.
True, exactly.
Speaking of that, Dave, I am so eager to hear your number 2 pick.
Well, it's a game that you questioned why I liked it so much when you tried it yourself. It is the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood.
Oh.
Honestly, I'm really glad that it's in here, and I'll explain why after you explain why you liked it.
Well, I should say that when you said you didn't like it, it didn't surprise me. So actually, this plays into why I bounced off of Thirsty Suitors. For years now, I've been, these games will come out and maybe the trailer looks interesting or someone will recommend it or the game's being written about. And I'm like, oh, I should try that. But often I find, like whether something grabs me immediately, whether it takes a little while or whether I'm not feeling it, that very emotional, not rational feeling inside me, I've learned to trust it a lot more. Because I find if I'm not vibing with the game and I keep pushing, there might be something interesting in there for me to uncover. But for the most part, I know I'm not going to have a good time. This is over years of kind of learning to listen to, my gut instincts on these things. And that was Thirsty Suitors. Within about 10 minutes, I was not vibing with the game. I mean, as a critic, I find I need to start to, investigate these feelings to find out exactly why that is or isn't the case. But with the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood, it was one of those that almost from the start of the game, pretty much when the demon appears, which is like a minute into the game, suddenly I was hooked. And I couldn't quite understand why. But as the game went on, I guess I got more of an inkling about it. This is the team that made the Red Strings Club, which I am in the middle of streaming at the moment. And that game has...
Shameless self-promotion.
But that's a game that has really good pixel art and animation, and they've really stepped up their game for this follow-up. I think the pixel art, the design of the creature is amazing, but moreover, it's the writing as well. The idea that we're playing a witch who has been exiled because she uses tarot to tell the future, but she's so good at what she does that when she predicted kind of catastrophe for her coven, they punished her for it. That's kind of an old trope, the idea of, the fortune teller. She tells us something we don't want to hear, and so we run her out of town. That's kind of hundreds of years old. So I like that idea. But then I've always really been a fan of tarot cards. I have my own deck. I don't use it a lot because this year I found out I have ADHD. So, I'll get into it for maybe like a week or two, and then it'll be on the shelf for like 2 years, and then I'll go, oh yeah, and then I'll pull it down and I'll get into it for a week or two, and then it goes on the shelf. But I find the idea of, I don't actually believe you can define the future from these cards, but I like the idea that you can ask it a question, lay down some cards, and then you can interpret those into a story based on what they mean. And I find that process really interesting. So the idea that you're building a tarot deck, you actually get to design the cards yourself, which is kind of cool. And then because this character actually can predict the future, you have these conversations with the demon to kind of uncover truths about him because you formed a partnership. So, he's this very imposing looking creature, but it's that thing where I guess can be a bit tropey these days, but I think Buffy popularized it, but the idea of this horrific looking monster actually just talking like, your friend at college, that kind of thing. And so it's kind of, it's the art, it's the music, but it's more just the way the game was written and incorporating that into basically doing a tarot reading and uncovering truths about people, which actually, now that I played the Red Strings Club, is very much what that game was. But in that game, you were using alcohol to kind of uncover people's secrets and get them to tell you things. Here, you're using tarot cards. So maybe after playing the Red Strings Club, I won't find this as novel or amazing, but for what I played, it zoomed in and it hit the center of, Dave is going to love this game.
So I'm extremely happy that you brought it up, and I'm also happy that you explained your whole gut feeling thing, because it'll help me explain why I'm happy it's here, and also like the reason why I happen to bounce off it. So unlike you, I don't trust my gut ever anymore because it's happened way too many times where I played a game for like 10 to 20 minutes. I go, I hate this. Then 2 years later, I try it again with like a whole different mindset. And I go, oh my God, this is my favorite game now. Like, it happens so frequently that I'm now like, you know, if I didn't really enjoy a game, but I only played it for an hour, I'm kind of hesitant to like hate on it. Because it's like, genuinely, I might like this later. So perhaps, you know, I always have like a little caveat. I really didn't like this, but maybe, you know, like some other day I will. And that's kind of how I felt because I was really sick that day. When I tried it for 10 minutes and I was like, this is not the distraction I wanted, and I'm out. However, man, I think I could easily get it into that like right now. In fact, I think I might play that tonight or maybe even tomorrow. I'm very interested in playing it because the Red Strings Club is the same way. I love that game. But if I want to play it right now or even like back then, you know, like in September, I probably wouldn't have a good time because I wasn't looking for that kind of game at that point. So, man, yeah, it's interesting how we each hit, you know, the exact opposite way, essentially, because I'm really looking forward to trying it again because my gut is so, you know, like fickle with shit like this.
Well, and you know, I do agree with you in terms of kind of that idea that time heals all wounds, but when approaching a film or a game or a book, time is very important because it's like an old Buddhist saying, you know, like when a man stands in the same stream 5 years later, he is not the same man and it is not the same stream. The idea that, we're constantly changing. So actually a good example is when I was in my early 20s, I watched the Christopher Nolan movie Memento because everyone was raving about it. And I hated it. I absolutely hated that movie. And
contrarian.
No, but here's the thing. It's actually the same thing. When I got my Kindle in 2012 and I tried to read a lot of the classics, I read Moby Dick and I absolutely hated Moby Dick. Same thing, but I've kept both those in mind because, again, I've noticed this over the years that as I grow and I return to certain things, because I've changed, I take things away from movies and books and games and I will have a different experience. Now, with Moby Dick, I've heard it's more for people in middle age. So I thought, you know, I was in my early 30s when I first read it. When I get to about 50, I might try again and maybe I'll like the book. I've been meaning to rewatch Memento for a long time now because I guarantee I'm going to have a different experience. But I guess also I find that a separate idea to learning to trust my gut. Because now this may be to do with the ADHD thing as well, because it's that idea where I have had so many examples of ignoring my gut and then ending up not really liking something I pushed through with. And, you know, now I understand, a lot of these, especially when it comes to games and books, movies are a different thing because that's only usually a couple hours. Same thing with an album. But with something that's going to require, you know, like 10 to 50 hours of my time, I'm now much more cognizant of, okay, the initial reaction in my gut isn't good. I think I'm going to listen to it because I don't want to risk, you know, getting 50 hours into something and hating it the whole way.
Okay.
Even if at the end it's been a beneficial experience because I've gone through something, I know why I don't like it. You know, there's all these positives that can come out of a negative experience. But I guess it's like, man, I only have so much time left. I really want to find things I love, you know?
Yeah, I get that feeling a lot.
Skateboarding.
Are you kidding, man? Tony Hawk 2 was like the greatest thing ever.
Is that your number one?
No. The PC port of the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remaster crashes all the fucking time.
Oh my god.
They have to put that on frickin' Steam, dude. I can't believe it isn't on Steam yet. It's so stupid.
Yeah. So we need to put we need to put the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood in the list. And you know what? I know I'm kind of outvoted 2-1. So I was thinking maybe we could put it under Thirsty Suitors.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, you know, I'm not going to put in a drum roll here, but we are now up to the big boys. It's the number one game for all three of us. I have to ask now. Let's make it a big thing. Dork. What is your number one game of 2023?
My number one game is... It isn't a surprise. It's going to be Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Yay.
Yippee! Yo-woohoo!
Woohoo, yay. Yeah, it's actually surprising how like divisive this game is, because I think people really want not more Breath of the Wild, whereas like with me, Breath of the Wild is easily like one of my favorite games of all time. So I was like, listen, I can take another one. I'll take it, you know? And I kind of like went back and forth on it. Initially I was just like, man, this is so similar that I'm kind of worried we're just gonna like mash them together in our heads and just go, what's the point of the first game anymore? But like the more I played it, you know, I was thinking, no, I think there are like reasons to play both games, and it's just impressive that this came out from them trying to do like a DLC. It makes perfect sense too, because clearly I'm assuming like the idea for their DLC thing was, how about, you know, we have this crazy physics system that's amazing, why don't we just try to let people like use it and like fucking make like Lego shit with it, you know? Like it could work, and they're like, well, let's just this is getting too big, let's just make it a whole new game. And yeah, it's awesome. So obviously we can't talk about everything with this game, but I want to highlight a few specific things that I really like. So I'm impressed, because this is a very big game. You know, everyone who's played it knows if you want to play it for a long time, you will play it easily over like, you know, 100 hours. There's plenty of stuff to do, even if a whole lot of it is kind of similar, which is how it usually works for open world games, you know. But even still though, it's really impressive to me how focused it is, and at least when it comes like to the themes, because the whole idea, like, you start off on like the Sky Islands, you know, that's the whole intro thing. Like for example, like in Breath of the Wild, you already could like glide through the air. And like in this one, there's a whole like Sky Island thing. You're able to use a whole bunch of like the tools to fly, you know, to even like reach those places, you know. And you have like an ability that lets you like ascend through like a ceiling thing. So that's already like, you know, like elevation based. There's a whole underground map, like separate and like mirroring like the whole overworld, which is called like the depths, I think, is it's called, or like the abyss. I forget what it's called. That whole area down there. So we're already seeing like the themes of like elevation like coming into play a lot here. But it's so interesting how they nailed it, because there's also the caves and the wells too. And like the caves and the wells would be pretty cool on their own. They're like, oh look, here's like a small like mini, like dungeon to explore. You know, it isn't like as fleshed out as a real dungeon by any means. But even still, it's like, oh, here's a cool little area to explore. But you know what's annoying in a lot of other open world games when it comes to their dungeons? Having to leave. And you know how they solved it? Just fucking go through the mountain. You can use you know, like your ascend ability to just leave anytime you want. And that's fucking genius, because it connects with everything. Like the caves only exist like because of like the parts of the world that were like, you know, like removed essentially, like, you know, to go up into the sky. I'm pretty sure that's the lore anyway. Or at the very least, it's because of like the abyss or something. So that's the reason the caves exist. And it just all works together in this really interesting way. Even though it's so, you know, like sprawling, it was able to like always have you thinking about your elevation, either going higher or going lower, just the whole time. You know,
it's that's what's kept shocking me. You know, like, yeah, the first time you go into the depths, it's like, wait, what? There's a whole thing down here, and then the caves are their own little thing, but you just can't believe how big the game is and how much there is to do. Jokingly, you know, when it came out, it was referred to as ADHD the game, because when I was trying to get to the first town I was going to, the Rito village, it took me about 20 to 25 hours to get there, because almost every step of the way it was like, ooh, let me go off over here. Oh wait, I'm gonna go off over here now. Ooh, what's that? You know, then I come back to the the path. I'm like, okay. You go 10 meters down the road, you go, ooh, what's that? That's actually why I stopped playing. I think why a lot of people bounce off, because it becomes too overwhelming. There's so much to do. But yeah. It is so amazing, you know, like in the caves, the idea that Well, the new powers, when you first start playing, you're like, oh, I kind of miss the 4 powers I had in Breath of the Wild. And then you get the new ones and you're like, oh, wow, this really opens the game. And of course, a lot of game developers were talking about on Twitter just how, what is this sorcery? How did they get like the rewind mechanic to work with everything? How does this all happen? What wizards do they have working at Nintendo? Because it doesn't break it either. I think that's why the game got delayed so much, is they were really making sure that it was stable. Like, I don't like throwing too much shade at other big open world developers, but look at Starfield and how buggy and just broken that is, or Redfall, that was a complete flop, but that came out as its own thing. And look at most AAA games that came out this year and just how broken most of them were at launch.
Yeah. And Aliens Dark Descent is still sometimes a broken mess, and it's not even AAA. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's more understandable. If you're a small team without the resources, it's tougher. But with these huge studios who are also selling millions of copies of these games based on their names alone,
and also taking like 6 million years to put anything out. Yeah.
And it's been what? It's been 6 years since Breath of the Wild. But once you play Tears of the Kingdom, even though I fell off, I do want to get back to it. But you play that game and you're like, yeah, I can see why this took 6 years to make.
Here's the thing. I think I still like Breath of the Wild better because I 100% I agree with you guys. It's like everything that they accomplished with this game is genius. But I think just the sheer scope, at least, and maybe if I was still in high school when I played Breath of the Wild, so I had like a ton of time on my hands. And I think that definitely has something to do with that. This, and I'll so fully acknowledge it. But also just like, as genius and as like incredible as Breath of the Wild is, I got like a little bit burnt out on it, that I did take I took like a 4-month break until I like came back to it and went and did like the rest of the story and the other stuff that I wanted to do. So I think the next game, I agree with most people that it probably should be a little bit smaller.
Yes.
But it's hard for me to just, even if I don't really want to replay Tears of the Kingdom specifically, like I can never just look at it and be like, no, it's a bad game.
No, God, yeah.
It's very frustrating to see a lot of people, like I know a lot of people are divided just because they were like, no, I want more classic Zelda instead of like more Breath of the Wild. And that's incredibly frustrating to me too, because I think that Tears of the Kingdom like was a game that was worth being created, like it was it's worth experiencing as a consumer, and it was worth being created by the team that clearly was very passionate about it. And even building off of Breath of the Wild, it does quite a few things better. Like the dungeons are better, the story is better. As the Switch generation has gone on, Nintendo has gotten like even better than they already were at adaptive audio, which comes through incredibly here in like the shrines and boss fights and stuff, all that sort of thing. And it's just like, I think it's just the sheer scale that I think a lot of people are getting tired of. And I don't even think that's necessarily Zelda's fault. But the thing is, with Zelda fans, they're making it the Zelda team's fault because they just want to complain about everything.
Oh, Zelda fans are the worst.
They're the worst. And instead of seeking out indie games, which I guarantee you could go play some Ocarina of Time ROM hacks, or find some indie games that play like A Link to the Past, or I'm sure there will be like some Ocarina of Time like indie games that will come out in the next like 5 or so years. Like, instead of seeking stuff like that out, they just want to just turn on the one like actual Zelda game, because they all only play like Nintendo games, I guess. So they just want to complain about Zelda all the time. And it's like, why don't you just go like broaden your own horizons then, instead of getting angry about getting a little bit exhausted by a Zelda game?
Well, you know why, Drew? Because being angry and complaining is easy. Doing anything else is more difficult.
Well, you know what? You know who really gets to be mad? Pikmin fans. You know why? Because we get to sit around for 10 years with nothing, okay? Meanwhile, you guys are like, oh man, we have to wait a while for the next Zelda game. Okay, at least you know it's getting made. Shut up.
I do just want to mention one thing about Tears of the Kingdom. You brought it up, Drew, how you were in high school when Breath of the Wild came out, and you had the time to really dedicate to it. When I was looking at the discourse of Tears of the Kingdom and playing it myself, I did have that thought where, oh my God, can you imagine what this game would be like if you were 10 years old? Like, just not only the sheer creativity allowed to the player because of the fusing and the Lego building and all that, not just because there is so much bloody game, because I assume that even to this day a lot of kids they still get the 1 to 2 games a year. Maybe it's different with subscription services, but yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I was 12 when Link to the Past came out, and I played that, not making progress, but just playing around in that world. I played around in that world for years.
Yeah, and I was very young when, like, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were coming out, and I was like, wow, these are just, like, so incredible. It's like, yeah, I can only imagine how it is for, like, kids that have just unlimited time to sink into this stuff.
Well, I'll also just say, like, on what you were saying, it's funny that you say that you, like, just wanted to play around in A Link to the Past when you were younger. I think I did the exact same thing when it came to, like, I just want to, hang out in, like, Majora's Mask, hang out in, like, Wind Waker, just, like, just, like, see what's on these islands, like, again, I already have the game completed, but even still, just, like, it's just kind of fun to, just be in the game world that you love, So I can totally see how, like you were saying, just for a kid, yeah, it's that, but like, like times 1,000, because there's just infinite stuff you can, it's crazy. But I will also want to add on. So this is my, like, part 2 here, right? So yeah, it's really great. So yeah, in terms of improvements over like Breath of the Wild, as like Drew said, like the dungeons and the story, but the bosses were way better. Like,
yes, yeah, okay, 100% agree. Yeah,
crazy better than the first game, crazy amount. So huge kudos to them. I don't think they were as difficult as I would have liked it, but even still, have way more personality and, like, way more, like, gimmicks to them that makes them pretty, like, memorable, opposed to the just, it's like the Thunder Blight of who cares, right?
Yeah, that whole thing was so stupid.
They just the amount of improvements, like, that they made. Like, everyone had an issue, like, when it came to, like, the weapons breaking, and I didn't realize at first how much, like, the fusion mechanic in terms of weapons almost, I obviously you can't ever say it completely fixed it, because people will still get upset that the weapons break at all, right? But even still, I think it really, like, remedied that, because, like, anytime, like, you engage with an enemy camp, you're not just out, like, your best weapons. Now you acquire, like, some, like, resources to make any weapon you find way better. So it almost makes the entire game, I'd say, like, besides the last 10%, a lot more balanced. I'd say at the end, it's still like, okay, I'm using stuff that's better than I'll eventually get back. But everything besides that, like, it doesn't ever feel like I'm, like, wasting stuff, because you're always gonna get, like, more tools to put onto more weapons. And it just makes it's a whole new, like, discoverable, essentially. Like that like, reward is so much fun, because not only is it, like, demonstrably, like, effective on, just, this is going to help me in the future, but you can choose how it helps you. You can choose, like, I want to put it on this and see what it does. You can experiment with it. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really good with arrows. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's really good with spears. Like, it's so interesting how much that one thing, I say that one thing, but it's incredibly, I will never forget the moment where, like, that opening shrine had me tested out, and I had the shield. I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And then I freaking put like the rock on my shield. I was supposed to put the rock on my sword. I didn't understand the controls right away, so I put it on. I glued it to my shield, and I seriously just freaking, like, laughed for, like, a minute straight. It was so delightful. Yeah. what a moment! There's a whole bunch of shrines in this game that are, I think, really, really good. But There's a lot of them that aren't amazing. I would have liked to see more, just like longer shrines, or at the very least, have some caves be almost like a real dungeon. Just like anything, like, to kind of, give the atmosphere that you're trekking through a place and have to do multiple puzzles in a row. Because there's a whole bunch of really good shrines, but even at their best, they'd end at like, okay, here's like the first iteration off this initial concept, and then it's done. Here's your reward. And it's like, this is a cool idea. How about, like, you had me do it a few times, Yeah.
Yeah.
But, man, it's so great. And, oh yeah, like, earlier, Drew, you were saying that you really, got fatigued and you don't want to play it again. I am so excited to play this game again. Even though I played it for 140 hours, I'm so ready for playthrough number 2. I'm so ready.
Huh.
Hell yeah. That was freaking awesome, yeah.
So I think you can hear, this is totally my favorite game. Like, this is totally, I love it so much.
Yeah, and even once I got around to, like, finishing the story, I was like, hang on a second. Like, I really get what they were going for with the concept of the changes to Hyrule, and this is probably one of the best, like, Zelda final bosses, too, because it really makes, like, just everything about the overworld and the abilities, like, come together.
Yeah. Oh, man. Obviously, like, we can't get into complete, like, spoiler territory, but it's astounding how they finally did it. Like, I would say, like, not even Ocarina of Time, like, the whole, like, Zelda series has this idea of, like, multiple phases, which I think is even like, more, like, distinct than, like, the multiple phases from, like, the Souls games. Because, like, in those games, it's just like, oh, I might look a little different and I have, like, a different moveset. In, like, the Zelda games, though, even Ocarina of Time, it's like, here's, like, the Ganondorf fight, and then you have to escape the castle, which is its own thing. Yeah. And then you have a completely, like, different atmosphere and, like, fight with like, Ganon himself,
And it's so thick. It's so thick.
Yeah.
And they do, I can't spoil it, but they do this very minor kind of, like, fourth wall breaking thing in the middle of the fight just to, like, make it a little bit extra scary what you're up against. Wait. And it's, like, amazing.
I was talking about Ocarina of Time still. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no, I was talking about Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sorry, I got confused.
I was just saying, like, I was just, like, describing how cool, even in Ocarina of Time, it was that cool.
Yeah, but
in Tears of the Kingdom, though, it's that, but it encapsulates so much of this already, like, big-ass game into, like, its climax, and it pulls stuff in, and, in my opinion, completes a part of, like, Breath of the Wild that wasn't really, like, done much with, which I've already talked about with Drew. It's like, you guys didn't need to do this, but you did, and, like, it's so good.
You're kind of getting me interested into really diving back in. I'm just intimidated, of course, by the size, but
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, Dave, you should just sprint to the dungeons and do them.
but that's not the game, Drew.
True. As you can tell, I could probably keep talking about this, but it's the last thing I'll say, though. So I totally get why certain people would be like, because it's a very, very huge game, and even though I appreciated, because obviously even like Breath of the Wild was big, but this one has the sky and the abyss, so there's way more, way more. Even if you just think about that, plus the caves, plus the wells, plus all the side quests, I think are like a little bit better too. So there's a whole bunch there. And I can totally understand, like, feeling like this is overwhelming, because at a certain point, I think even I felt like that, until, like, a switch flipped. But, see, like, the whole thing, like with the Abyss, it's really, really cool. I really liked exploring down there. But I will say, it like, ran into an issue that I had when it came, like, to Pikmin 4. I think I talked about this with Drew. Pretty much every part of that game is great. But the worst parts for sure is when you're close to 100%ing an area and you just have to, like, finish it up. And I think that's the exact same thing happened, like, with the Abyss. After the charm of, like, I'm wandering in the dark, this is so scary. After that kind of, like, wore off, after, like, 10 hours or so of you exploring down there, it just kind of it became like okay, I'm down here, I gotta explore, I want to uncover everything, okay, whatever. So I think there's too much of it down there, but it is really, again, it's impressive though. It's impressive, and it was totally, like, worth, like those opening I can't believe it's actually pitch black, that kind of thing. But it is really big.
So I probably know where you want to put the game, but where do you want to rank Tears of the Kingdom?
What's the highest game on the list right now?
The RE4 remake.
Oh, yeah, it has to go higher than that, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And here's some other closing thoughts I have about Zelda stuff. In Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf is really attractive and hot. And also, in the next game, I keep saying this is my little thought that I've always had, but I think that this Breath of the Wild, this open air formula with the climbing and stuff is like custom made for the hook shot to be a part of it. And I really want that to be in the next game. And I'm like, where the fuck is it? And also here's another headcanon thing I have. I think that if they wanted a smaller but just as dense world, they could return to the island formula in some sort of way. Like along the lines of the Wind Waker. And I think it could fit. It could be they could find a way to make it a good middle ground between people who want a more focused experience and people who like want to go wherever they want, whenever they want to.
Absolutely.
But that's what I will say about Zelda going forward. But yeah, I'm okay with Tears of the Kingdom going at the top so far.
Okay.
And since you said it, I'll also say too, Ganondorf is hot, but he makes imposter as sus face in a cutscene, and it's amazing.
He does. Yeah.
I told Drew to watch out for it, and they're like, oh my god, he does!
I know, and then I saw the imposter as sus face, and then I made a pog face.
I'm face palming right now.
I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't realize this was gonna drag you down.
Okay, well, that was quite the conversation, but I mean, the game kind of needed it, didn't it? And I assume most of our number ones are going to be like that. So let's move on to Drew's number one game of 2023.
Guys, anybody that literally has been in a single conversation with me could see this coming from a freaking 50 quadrillion miles away. But my number one game of 2023 has to be Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And let me explain why Super Mario Bros. Is such an impressive game. Not only just it on its own, but also just like what it kind of represents for Mario at this point in time, okay? 3D Mario has been going strong, but 2D Mario has been dormant for the last like 11 years, while incredible side scrollers were popping out left and right, kind of showing classic Mario up in its absence. We had Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, we had Rayman Legends, we had Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, Celeste, Shovel Knight, so many games popping up over the last decade that are just like, dang, what do you even do with Mario? And the Mario Maker games coming out were kind of like, dang, maybe the team doesn't even know what to do and they're just kind of leaving it to the fans, but it would be great for a true 2D Mario successor to come out. It would be great if they did that, but it just had been so long, so we just weren't sure where it was at. And Mario as a franchise has kind of been stuck in this rut for a while where everything needs to be presented in a specific way so that it can be part of the Super Mario marketing machine sort of thing. But something kind of like snapped this year with the movie coming out, which is this not wildly different interpretation of these characters, but it is a different interpretation. And I think that kind of made it snap. And then they also announced that they were going to be doing remakes of 2 turn-based Mario RPGs, one of which is out now, one of which is on the horizon, after that kind of branch of Mario has basically been completely gone for years. And then Super Mario Bros. Wonder, that's like the 1 in the 1-2 punch, and then the 2 punch is Super Mario Bros. Wonder pulls up and makes this huge statement that 2D Mario is ambitiously back with more vibrant visuals, great level design, and reworks to the overworld formula, and a wonder effect that, whether they're mid or great depending on the level, changes up the gameplay for an action-packed burst in every single freaking stage. And I think you can have a debate about if it makes the game more or less cohesive, But I think really after all of those games over the last decade were coming out, they were like, well, you know what? If Mario's coming back, then we're going to have something completely different in every level then. Nobody else can do that except for Mario. You know, that sort of thing. It even manages to show up Rayman Legends music levels by having more of them and by using original songs every time instead of remixes of licensed music, which is so impressive. Really, the only major drawback is the really low difficulty, which I think is just kind of a modern Nintendo thing, and the really lame boss fights, except that I will say, as easy as it was, I did still really love the final fight. It had a huge smile on my face. Everything amazing about Mario 3 and World is here with a modern twist, so even if the higher difficulty of those games keeps those games a little bit higher on my list of 2D Marios, Mario Wonder is an incredible reminder of why Mario is the man. And on top of that, this year sucked, and I really just needed a big smile on my face. And so this game really helped me climb out of the rut that I was in too. So that's why Super Mario Bros. Wonder is my game of the year. Okay, now I can take a breath.
Very nice, Drew. Very nice. That's what it looks like when someone comes prepared.
Well, Drew, what you said about every level being different, I mean, that was kind of the hook of Super Mario 3D World. But I found it annoying in that game, maybe because of it wasn't true 3D, it was more the isometric or, going in or add a level. It was more playing with the Z-axis a little more than just like a 3D Mario. But yeah, with the Wonder, I'm now in World 6, so I'm close to the end of it, but I'm definitely going to try and get all the Wonder Seeds, I think. It is refreshing, just like you never know what every new level is going to bring. I mean, some things are kind of repeated here and there, especially within worlds. They'll kind of maybe revisit the same idea a couple times. Actually, that's kind of maybe the only real criticism I'll have is there are some levels where I'm like, oh my god, I want to play an entire game based around this, and it's only there, and then they move on. But even that, I mean, that's just such a wealth of creativity, because then, any other developer or even Nintendo themselves probably could take any of those mechanics and make a interesting game based on it. Or maybe they couldn't, and that's why it's only in one level.
See, and I think I know exactly, because you were saying like the one where you have like the badge power up that you launch like a grappling hook thing like with a vine, right?
I love that, yeah.
Yeah, that felt really good, and I can totally see what you're saying. Like, if like there was a game where like that was like a core mechanic, that would be extremely fun. So I think it's half and half. I think half of like the Wonder stuff is like, okay, like this like deserves to be like a one-off thing, and kind of half of it's like, I don't know why you guys didn't really do much else with this, because like there is something here. I almost wonder if all the levels were like made by their own teams.
Well, they had this developer interview that's honestly kind of becoming like required reading for playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder. But it's basically they just literally came in and they just like tossed like any idea around, and it's pretty famously spread. This game had no development deadline. So they just came in and they tossed like, they said over like 2,000 ideas around.
Wow.
And they just let like whatever they felt would stick. They even said that they had an idea for a level where a live action Mario would pop up in the background. And I have no idea what the heck that would even look like, but that they we're clearly going like balls to the wall with like disposable ideas just to change things up and really blow people away. Because it's like I said, you have all these other games that have a lot of variety, but it's built purely around the platforming. So just the fact that this Mario game is willing to just be like, nah, we're just gonna like turn it into like, top-down Zelda game, or you're like floating around, or you're just like running around. It's like a little rhythm platformer, or just all those sorts of things.
Stealth game.
Yeah, the stealth level. Yeah, that's really a flex that Mario's universe is so malleable that you can just do that. And that's, I think, what they really needed to do to have 2D Mario make a great comeback.
I 100% agree, yeah.
Yeah, it's the most inventive Mario game, since maybe Galaxy.
Yeah, I I will say though, I did say this to Dork, and I think pretty much everyone all agrees. They did not cook with these boss fights.
No.
They're really boring. But I am excited for you guys to get to the final boss because I think you'll see like when you get in the thick of it, you're like, yeah, this is like the most Drew coded thing that could ever happen in a Mario game.
I've heard good things about the final boss. Like it all comes together.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for you guys to get there. But yeah, this game just kicks so much ass. And yeah, Mario freaking rocks. I think even with all since the ideas are like so creative, they are treated as to be disposable for the sake of variety.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a 2D Mario game. They're not truly breaking new ground. So I am okay with putting this under Tears of the Kingdom.
That is very kind of you, Drew. I don't have to have an argument. That's great.
I was thinking maybe Wonder could go below Ghost Trick and above Pikmin 4.
Ooh.
I'm okay with that as well. See, because I also have played it until, I think I'm in currently like World 6, and yeah, it's good, but at the same time, you know?
Yeah, I think I can go under Ghost Trick because Ghost Trick is also just so like one of a kind. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, well, we're down to me now. So, my number one game of 2023 is actually kind of a shock, even to me. It is Cocoon.
Ooh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
That makes sense, yeah.
It's by one half of the team that made both Limbo and Inside. And while I do want to play through Inside, I'm one of those people that hated Limbo. I know we're a rare breed, but yeah, I just could not vibe with what Limbo was. And Inside looks similar, but I'm interested in it. But just, I don't know, maybe it was the other half of this partnership. Apparently after Inside, they had a big fight and split up. But this one just is so beautiful in its simplicity. It's got no text or language, no spoken word. You're a weird creature on an alien planet. All the technology is completely alien. And through game design, you work out puzzles and you work out how to progress, and everything you do is just weird and wonderful and surprising. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Everything I did was a surprise, and it just made the game endlessly fascinating because there's a curiosity like, well, I didn't expect that. What's going to happen next? It kind of reminded me both of Another World. I don't know if either of you have played that, the really famous early 90s platform by the French guy, Eric Chahi, I think his name is, where you get transported to an alien planet, and it's got a lot of like context sensitive button presses where when you're next to certain things, different things will happen. And it was one of the first times that happened in games, but it's just like you really have to work out how everything works on your own or you die. There's less death in this. I don't know if you can die. I never got even close. But it also reminded me of like games like Myst, what the games that Cyan Worlds makes, because those are also alien landscapes, and you have no idea what anything does or what anything means, and it's only through exploration and experimentation that you start to piece together how the like alien technology works. But this was a modern, streamlined version of those ideas where I only got stuck one time, and it was kind of my own fault. I missed something very simple, which happens a lot with me. But every other time it was just a wonderful forward progression of, oh my god, what is next?
That's awesome.
That's so freaking sick, dude.
I just added it. So this is also really fun because I'm hearing all these games and I'm like, you know what? Hearing you guys talk about it, perhaps I should use like this month to like tackle some of these. So I think I'm gonna for sure try like the Cosmic Wheel again. I'm also gonna try like the loopy, like the Woo Loop thing. But also, like, I'm gonna add this to the wish list. This, even though I'm not super into puzzle games, man, you having this as your number one, I don't know, like it. I think like your number one spot holds some weight with me. So I think I might want to see if it goes on sale. I should really give it a try.
Yeah, Dave, I have had my eye on a couple trailers for this game, and I already was like excited to get around to it at some point, but I think you just putting it as your number one gives me the confidence to like at least wish list it, if not like get it at some point later this month.
I've heard it is a very short game. You know, we're talking like I think 4 to 5 hours. But you know, also like I felt I progressed so much during that half an hour I played of it, and just this idea came into my head when Dork was talking about Alien Dark Descent and how like 40 hours for 12 missions. And in my head, I didn't want to get into the conversation because it's something that could derail us. But, you know, I think I've mentioned on the podcast before that I think most games outstay their welcome. And in the short time I played with Cocoon, it felt like that was never going to be the case. Now, it could still disappoint me once I finally, you know, finish it. But a lot of time I think you can tell from like how a game treats itself in its first half hour, how almost every half hour is going to play out, whether it's going to, you know, stretch things out or whether what the pacing is going to be like, at least.
Damn, that dude, that is some like revelatory shit you just said, because the opening to Aliens Dark Descent is so slowly paced, and I'm like, hey now, you know, like the first Alien movie is really slowly paced, but it's amazing. So perhaps this is just because, you know, every game has to have a bunch of tutorials, you know, like whatever. It's like the tutorial tax you have to pay at this point. You're not wrong though. Like perhaps like the first half an hour is indicative at the very least to like how the game treats its own pace.
Well, kind of. I don't want to be as, I guess, mean to say how it respects the player's time, because every player, you know, I got stuck. Some people might not get stuck there. Some people might get stuck in many other places. You can never kind of tell how much time an individual is going to take with something, but I think in terms of maybe it's in terms of when things are going well, how fast the game moves.
That honestly really motivates me to get it even sooner than, ooh, baby. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get into this.
Hell yeah, Drew.
Well, this is a lot of responsibility now, folks, because I have the final game to place. Now, personally, with me, where do I want to put Cocoon? I kind of want to put it under Ghost Trick and over Super Mario Wonder.
Nope. Nope. Mario goes first.
Dork?
I can totally see the argument of that. I just really wish I had played it so I could like actually like defend this. But I'm gonna have to go with Drew. We're gonna have to put the Mario up there.
So we're gonna have to do the Mario. Yep.
It's gotta go under Mario.
So you're cool with it being above Pikmin 4?
Whoa!
Oh, damn it!
Shit!
Oh, I shouldn't have opened my mouth there.
Pikmin 4. Drew, it's debatable. It's tough because like Dave's the only one who's had experience with this game, and even though you and I are excited to play it, even like Dave hasn't finished it, so it's like above Pikmin 4, where two of us have 100%ed it.
Yeah, I think Pikmin 4 goes above it.
Yeah,
I think Pikmin 4 goes above it too.
Look, I've tried to be fair, and you know, just to ruin the entire bit, none of this fucking matters.
That's also true. That's also true.
Don't say at the very end, we just wasted everyone's time.
No,
it's okay. We've gotten the play time, so it's okay.
Average watch time is up.
Yeah, exactly.
The fun was the journey. Well, that's the top 15. Now, we're not going to read out the entire list just yet. Those of you who have been following on know how it all ended up, but we wanted to talk a little more about not only some honorable mentions, but I guess just thoughts about 2023 as a year, because I think in terms of, you know, landmark years of video games, this was a pretty strong one.
Yes.
100%.
So do we want to go in the same order? Dork, do you want to talk about some of your honorable mentions?
I would love to, right? And I'm going to kick it off with the conclusion to a thread, or, you know, like, I happened like to bring up something earlier that this will conclude. So, my first honorable mention is Baldur's Gate 3. Listen, this game genuinely is probably better than at least like the bottom like 2 of mine. At least I'd say probably like top 3. The thing is, I just didn't, it's a very long game. I just haven't like beaten it yet. I've gotten almost through Act 1, and I really like what I've seen so far.
And they just patched in an epilogue with like over thousands of new dialogue.
That's insane. It is such a gigantic game. It's easily like the most on my hard or on my like SSD. It's 150 gigs. So I really should get around to it sooner rather than later because it's taking up a lot of space, and I don't want to. I'm also thinking I don't want to remove it because I don't want to install it again.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's so good, and I'm not really into like the CRPG genre much. But I think like this is like serving as clearly like one of the best games of the year and of quite a while, I'd say too, and also a great entry into this genre because I'm now really interested in playing like Divinity, like Original Sin. I hear that game is great. I'm actually kind of interested in playing even like Pillars of Eternity. I tried it out a long time ago, but now I'm just like, you know what? I can totally like vibe with this slow RPG click stuff, and it's just. So I've also played a whole bunch of like Dungeons and Dragons before, and it's incredible to me that this is literally just Dungeons and Dragons, but you're playing it in a video game. All the dice rolls, all the crazy. I should try this. Let's see if this works. Yeah, you can possibly try it. Oh, you want to do like an improv weapon? Grab that chair and throw it at the guy. Seriously, I can't believe you can. Oh, he's on a ledge. Let's walk up to him and fucking like shove him off the ledge. Oh, he took fall damage. He's dead. Like that's so fun. I love that stuff. That's the best part of D&D, and it's crazy that you can do that.
Rein your expectations for the genre then, because Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of unique in allowing that level of freedom.
Oh yeah. I just mean like in the sense, I totally get what you're saying. I just mean that it has like sparked the interest in like, I want to have like a turn-based combat system like this while also having cool party members to talk to and all that kind of stuff. I'm more open to like the genre now. I just mean the fact that they were able to put like this is easily like the most truest, adaptation of like a D&D ever, I'd say. So it's just impressive in that sense.
I just wish it ran better. Although it could have been, I tried it in its first week, and most AAA games, if you try them in your first week, there's going to be optimization issues. Oh, yeah. So like I wasn't able to really enjoy it. Like in terms of what it was, I liked it, but just when you're playing a game and like the performance is suffering, it kind of does sap your energy to want to continue playing.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, and that happened with quite a few games. Maybe this year, maybe my laptop is getting long in the tooth. Although in 2020, I did buy it with future proofing in mind. It does have some pretty good hardware in it, but like Alan Wake 2 and the Talos Principle 2 and that Souls-like from Team Ninja Wo Long earlier this year, and trying to think what else. There were a couple other big, AAA games that I tried pretty much after they came out, and just the performance was abhorrent. It really sapped my will to want to continue with the game, even though, like both Alan Wake 2 and Talos 2 are games I really want to play because they both really got me on board.
Yeah, incredible. But I also have to mention, like you brought up Alan Wake 2, I'm really looking forward to playing that eventually. I hear it's amazing. So if I had to guess, like, of course, we can't play every game ever. It's just, it's not feasible. But I would say in maybe 3 or 4 years, that would probably be up high on this list. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. So, but just know, everyone out there, I haven't played it yet. Or I don't think any of us have played it. That's probably why it's not going to show up on here.
Like the half an hour I spent with it was really cool, but like the performance was really bad, like more than most AAA games.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, so on to the next one, we have Dredge, which was an indie game that came out earlier in the year. It's basically just like a Lovecraftian like fishing game where you just control a boat and like you go to certain islands and just try to, there's a whole bunch of fish to catch. There's some side quests to do. It's good. It has like a few issues, but overall it's just it's a game about fishing that has like some Lovecraftian elements to it, and it's fun.
I remember you loving this at the time. I kind of dug the loop because it had a very addictive kind of get a little further, get a little more each day, and of course it's that thing where early in the games, like new houses open up or new shops open up that kind of expand what you can do. It's kind of like I think games like SteamWorld Dig, where you dig down, you get some treasure, you go back to town, you use the treasure to buy upgrades, and you're able to go a little bit further. And that can be a really fun loop when it's done well. I think it can get quite monotonous if it's not like fine-tuned, but Dredge seemed like, especially with like the horror elements, it was on the ooh, I want to see what comes next side.
Yeah, I'd say I think I agree with you in the sense that all that kind of stuff can really like instill a really fun sense of progression where you just kind of want to see like, oh, I got that like little bit better. I like bought like a new upgrade. I want to try it out. I'm able to use like a fishing net now. I can now catch ocean fish. Like that stuff's cool. But the horror elements after a while kind of just become a hindrance, unfortunately. But even still, it's a nice little game. I'm happy that it got like some recognition because it's a freaking fishing game. I mean, that doesn't usually happen, so that's cool. Okay, so moving on. Even though it's not as good as Showgunners, I did want to talk about Miasma Chronicles. This is like the next game from the Mutant Year Zero devs. There's a lot, so I don't want to do a video on this game because it would just be exhausting. It would be exhausting because I have so much animosity towards it in so many different ways. But man, like when I was into it, it's real, like it's really good. It has the same like fun gameplay loop as Mutant Year Zero did at its best. At its best, the game was really fun, and I always like the tactics stuff. And also, I have to I specifically wanted to put it in here to mention this. The Overwatch ability in this game is very cool. Basically, in XCOM, if you choose, or even like Mario Rabbids, if you choose to do Overwatch, any enemy that moves will get like shot at from you on their turn. It's essentially like a reaction shot, but then it's used up and it's just done. Like you can't get like 2 Overwatches on a character. However, in this game, it isn't anything in your vision. You have like a cone you place on the map, and anything that enters into it, you'll have a reaction shot against it. But you can keep going. Like as long as you have the ammunition, if you have like 3 shots left, you could maybe do 3 reaction shots in that turn. It's really cool in that way. But yeah, overall as a game, I actually stopped playing. I couldn't finish it. I was so fucking tired of it. I uninstalled it just to make me stop trying to go into it and finish it. I was so exhausted from it.
It sounds like one of those games where you could kind of see the great game hidden underneath all the muck.
Yeah, and what's also really annoying? I'm sorry to call out the developer. It isn't like he's ever gonna listen to this podcast, because there was a few issues that kept propping up, and I was like, how did they not see this as a problem? And I posted 2 of them after a while because it happened again. I'm like, I'm just gonna screenshot this. I'm gonna put it in like the Steam discussions. And he replied to both of them. I'm not going to explain what his reply was, but basically he was saying, that's how it is. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is clear. This is... Anyway. So, I honestly, after that happened, I was like, like the goodwill from this game really dropped. I'm going to uninstall it. I'm just done with it. Oh, gosh. But yeah, I 100% agree, though. Like, there were, like, some flashes of brilliance. I'm just like, man, there's a really good game here that you could do, but okay. I guess not. You guys are really set in your ways after this and Mutant Year Zero. Sorry, I'll move on now. Which brings me to Marvel's Midnight Suns. And this is going to be a small rant here. So Marvel's Midnight Suns came out on December 1st of 2022. And it's the next game from, like, Firaxis, which is the people who made the last XCOM games. It's good. It's fun. It's like an interesting take on like the tactics like genre. You have to basically like build a deck of cards, and you don't really have like like a certain amount of like moves. You instead have like you can play a certain amount of cards, and it like at its best it plays like an actual like deck building game where you can like chain certain cards together to get more moves and stuff like that. Using like having the right deck can really help you for certain combat encounters. But overall, it's just really good. Like, I wouldn't say it's amazing. I wouldn't even say it's as good as XCOM, like 1 or 2. But at the same time, it's like, this is really fun how you took the Marvel Universe. You didn't just use, like, Avengers. You use, like, like some deep cuts, from the comics. and you made just this really unique, game, at least compared to the XCOM stuff. And the annoying thing is, it's competent. It's a competent game, and it's not on anything because it released in like the fucking cursed month of December. Because no one talks about things that came out in December for some reason. So
no, it's like it's not on any of my honorable mentions, but there was a game that came out late December last year called Solar Ash. I think it's the follow-up from the Hyper Light Drifter guy, and it's really interesting. I think it's worth a play. I probably should do a stream or something, but it's like a game that I only heard about like in January by accident. I can't even remember how, but it was like, oh yeah, this came out late December. I'm like, oh, that game. Oh, why have I not heard about the release of the follow-up, of this guy? Yeah, December is actually January is a bit of a no man's land as well, except it's become that area where, games that we don't want to release in Q4 will now start to release in Q1 of the next year. Yeah, it's just, it can't be annoying because sometimes really good stuff does come out and no one's paying attention. I also want to say this too. Obviously, we all know of the Game Awards, and clearly, like, have that one award show on like a pedestal. I mean, fucking Drew did a whole bit early on in the podcast, So obviously, everyone looks at like the Game Awards as like our Oscars, right? Except it's kind of hurting the industry, I think, in a way, because we're now also seeing like the release timings of like Oscar bait. Because like I know if you want to have like an Oscar bait movie, you release it at a certain like time of the year, usually like a month or two before the Oscars. So it's right in their minds, and that really seems like what's going on with Sony to me, because I couldn't believe last year. I mean, I could, because everyone knew that God of War was going to be in the nominations. But God of War had come out a week before the nomination stuff happened, and it had the most nominations. I'm like, guys, can we like, how are you not seeing that this is clearly like Oscar bait shit here? Like, of course it was going to show up, but they just released it like 2 weeks before the award show. Of course they're going to be like, oh, I loved it. I just played it. It was the best. So it's just annoying because the exact same thing I think is happening like with Spider-Man 2. Again, I'm looking forward to Spider-Man 2, but everyone and their grandma, oh, what's that? Like, that game is going to release in October? We should probably put it in for, like, the Game of the Year, like, nomination. Everyone knew it was going to get nominated. So it's just annoying to me how we have this. It is cool that it exists, I guess, because everyone gets to have, it's the Oscars, like, it's great, whatever. But it's just kind of unfortunate that we're now also seeing the trappings of the Oscars in the industry in terms of like releases and trying to go for awards. It really feels like Sony likes awards. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Anything
else, Dork?
Yes. Okay. So now, the next one on my list in terms of honorable mentions is the Metroid Prime Remaster. This is really good, honestly, in terms of just as a game, easily in like my top 5, but because it is really similar to like the original one, and it didn't like reinvent a whole bunch of stuff like the RE4 like one did. Like for me, it doesn't really like feel quite as fair to put it up there. It was really good. Also, Drew, you were talking about Metroid Prime in your end of the year video, and you know what?
Yeah.
I think you would have, even if you kept the control scheme the same, because I actually prefer the GameCube control scheme over like the two thumbsticks. I think I agree with you because it's easier to click the the LZ button opposed to holding down L on the GameCube controller.
Yeah, because I was literally talking about how the squishy triggers on the GameCube, because you have to squish it near constantly in Metroid Prime. And so it literally gave me horrible carpal tunnel. It was awful. And it's crazy because playing any of the Zelda games on GameCube, I never had that issue ever. It's weird to me.
I would even say, I know like you were potentially saying you might hold out to get like the Wii version, but even if you had to hold out, like, because hopefully they're going to like remaster Metroid Prime 2 at some point. So I would say, because I think you're right, having the Pro Controller helps so much. Yeah,
I was saying I was considering getting the Wii version like prior to the Shadow drop, I think. So now it's like, well, I might as well just like wait and see.
Good.
So yeah.
I'm really, really excited. I hope they, like they follow through with it because they don't always do that. So I really hope they make it, that they have a remaster of at least the second game. I would, of course, also like 3, but that is a bit harder with the motion controls. But even still, I really hope they remaster the second game. It's really good. So yeah,
if they can remaster Skyward Sword, then they can do Metroid Prime 3.
That's honestly, that's fair. That's fair. So next on my list is not a 2023 game. So here's where it's just here are the games I happen to play this year that I want to say, hey, I did. So this one, so The Last of Us Part 2, I actually finished it this year, and at its best, it's amazing. The gameplay is incredible, absolutely incredible, and it's just not a very good game, though. It has so many problems. I don't want to get into them, because who does, right? I don't want to make a video on it. You can't make me, because oh my god, would that just take forever. So I'm just going to move on. Seriously, Unsighted. I can't believe how long I had slept on this indie game. Speaking of, certain people wanting to have a Zelda game, but could, if they wanted to, have indie games that are kind of like A Link to the Past. Yeah, this really had the same vibes as A Link to the Past to me. It has an open world-ish kind of thing. It has, it's in the top-down perspective. The combat feels kind of similar in some ways, but just more there's more to it now because you can't really have that simple of a combat system anymore. It's really good, and I even bought it on release essentially because not everyone, but there are a few people on Twitter talking about Unsighted is really good and it's being slept on. And in 2021, I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. I got maybe 3 minutes into it, and I was like, nope, I'm out. But I tried it out on my Steam Deck when I was on vacation, and I played through the whole thing in the hotel. It was really great. Highly recommend trying it out. It even has some cool dungeons. All the mechanics are interesting and utilized well. It basically plays like a top-down Zelda game. It has combat and puzzles. It has certain gates of progression where you have to have an item, but you can actually break that progression path if you know certain techniques. Even it's crazy. It's extremely cool. That's all I have to say about that one. Anybody, have you guys even heard of that game before?
Oh, you recommended it to both of us, and I watched the trailer. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to give that a go when I have some spare time on my Switch.
Was that the one from the Signalis developers?
Yeah, it has the same publisher, I think. Yeah.
Oh, then I'm in. Then I'll then I'll get it.
it's really cool. I think you'll like how, because there is a hook shot. I'll just spoil that. So anyway,
heck yeah.
I also played Nosia, and that's spelled with Gnosia. Nosia. It's really interesting. It's half Among Us. It's half single player Among Us, half anime visual novel. It's really
weird. Interesting
game. Essentially you go through loops over and over and over. You're stuck in a loop trying to get out, and there's an imposter among us, and you guys have to talk around, there isn't the actual oh you have to go do tasks, but instead it's just we have to talk this out, see who's acting sus, and you have to try to get people on your side by this person accused this person, I'm gonna go to their defense, and you might sway some opinions. All of the characters have their own distinct personalities, and you can use that to your advantage. Certain characters when they lie might be extremely open to hopping on the bandwagon. Oh yeah, I agree that this person sucks, and eventually through all these loops, through the 80 or so you'll do in the full playthrough, you really learn how to understand what certain decisions that they choose mean, and you're able to kind of really suss it out and play the game in a way that even Among Us doesn't do, because of course Among Us is just hey, it's a witch hunt thing, it's all goofs and stuff, but this one there's a real game here that you can actually get better at because you're trying to outwit the CPU. It's really cool. Also the main character is non-binary, so that's a plus. Lastly, I just want to include Tenchu in there. I had played the PlayStation 1 stealth game earlier in the year, in March, and it holds up. It was always a really hard one to get into. I had purchased it a long time ago, and I had this inkling in my mind, I'm never going to get to it. I have it, and I'm just never going to play it. It's too clunky and hard. And one day I was just listen, I just played MGS. I'm going to play this game and really try. And Man, I'm glad I did. A really, really great game. I don't think it gets talked about enough, to be honest with you. Just a really fantastic stealth game that apparently you should avoid all the sequels to. I haven't played them myself, but everyone says they're way worse than this game, so make of that what you will. Yeah, so that's my whole honorable mentions list. Hope you guys didn't fall asleep.
No, of course not. Now, Drew, honorable mentions.
Yeah, so like with the Ghost Trick port, I also played the ports of Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden this year because I played Persona 5 last year, and that game was so Drew coded in so many ways. So I immediately got these two when they dropped, and obviously they're not as big of a deal as the Ghost Trick port, you know. So I didn't feel like including them on my list, but they're like really, really great. Especially like Persona 4 as a game is probably like as good as it gets. Like it's so good. The turn-based combat is like really fun, and the social links in the game are like the best out of the three that I've played. Like the collection of characters you have for 4 is just like perfect, basically. You know, me and Dave have our differences. You know, he's more of a Chie guy, I'm more of a Yukiko girl. But you know,
great.
Damn straight. But you really can't go wrong with most people in this cast. Like, they're just so overall likable. And Persona 3 Portable is straight up like one of the most like emotionally powerful stories like I've ever experienced in anything ever. With a soundtrack that like really, really heightens it. If anything, like I would say it's as like emotionally potent as like almost as much as Majora's Mask is. Like, you're just playing the game and you just have this really, really uneasy feeling because of what's going on in the game's story. And even both games have like a big emphasis on how you spend your time. It's incredibly interesting. And obviously the soundtracks for both games are like top tier, just so good. So I'm really glad I got the chance to experience both of these games, and I'm extremely excited for Persona 3 Reload next year. In fact, I'm probably going to say that's going to end up in my top 5 next year somewhere if I had to guess, but we'll just have to see.
Spoilers, holy shit.
I know, spoilers for a year that hasn't even come to pass yet. And then I also played Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which is made by Team Reptile, and is basically a spiritual successor to the Jet Set radio game. So you skate around as a character, and you get to platform and do skating combos, and the more importantly, you want to spray graffiti all over the wall and avoid the police, and it's really awesome. This game sets itself apart with its world first and foremost, because Jet Set Radio is just like, oh, it's like the 90s or whatever. This game is like very much on the sci-fi side, where you're in a cyberpunk world where there's like people with robot heads, and the police are trying to like use robot heads in order to like destroy graffiti gangs and stuff. But it also has a lot of that 90s charm where it's like, you know, gangs don't commit gang violence, they just spray graffiti everywhere to claim turf.
And
you don't have and break dance and stuff, and every time you want to have a graffiti battle with another team, these old people show up. This gang of old people called the Old Heads pull up, and they have to arbit the entire thing, and it's freaking awesome. And there's so many like cool tracks from like so many like, it's not like this was like a hip-hop score made by like one guy. Like, they got like a bunch of independent artists to like just be on the soundtrack, so you just have a bunch of mixtapes playing while you skate around. Like, the feeling of the world is just like really, really great, and like chaining combos and stuff is really fun. But the game unfortunately has this like really fucking stupid structure where you have to follow the dumbass plot the entire time. It's the most boring thing ever, and all of the characters have one facial expression. So other than the girl that's on your team who's like really peppy and upbeat, everybody just has the most bored looking expression the entire game. And I just couldn't care. I could not care. And it was so annoying. And another thing I will say about the game is that there were some things in the story sections where your character like faints and goes into their like brain, and then there's like a linear platforming segment where you have to like rail grind to get to the end, and those were really cool. I wish there were like more of those, but like not tied to the story, because I wish that I could just like discover them like somewhere. So basically, the game is really awesome, but the story genuinely weighs it down so much. Although I did like at the end when the character is like, yeah, but graffiti is awesome because it's illegal. Like, if it was legal, then nobody would do it. And I'm like, that is so true. Like, that's so awesome.
I tried that.
Yeah, you go, Dave.
Drew.
Yeah.
And I was actually quite shocked about what happens after the opening tutorial section, what happens to your character.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of go into a second tutorial section. But yeah, like as someone who never really got into Jet Set Radio, I just found the gameplay too frustrating. I found this, the way it flows, the way the graffiti works, just everything felt a lot better. The soundtrack's great. I'm looking forward to continuing. My God, is it an expensive indie game though?
It is. We talked about that a lot. Like, it's 40 bones. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a combination of being a more ambitious 3D title, because previously these guys had just made like a 2D fighting game, and then they jumped to a larger project like this. And then on top of that, probably like royalties to the artists, I would imagine, as well. But I don't know. Yeah, I think I would get it if it was on a little bit more of a sale, but...
Oh, okay. So I have two things to say. First of all, Dave, honestly, isn't that crazy? I remember back in the day, every indie game was $20 and that was that. Like, that was that. Yeah, and now it's like, it is cool because I've heard from people who are more in the know about like all like the business things that they were like selling themselves short a lot of the time.
Yep.
And like, especially for games like Terraria, I mean, that's insane, like how much is there, for that price. But I will agree, this one looks... It's crazy because like the price tag shouldn't influence how you feel about it.
It shouldn't.
But at the same time, $40 is a lot to ask for an indie. It does look good though. Also, the developers, as you were talking about, yeah, I didn't realize these guys were the ones that made fucking like Lethal League. That's crazy. That's these guys.
Yeah.
Really? Wow, I remember.
Yeah, it's the Lethal League, and that's why this studio really likes Hideki Naganuma, the guy that made the original soundtrack for Jet Set Radio with all of its awesome vocal chop-ups. And he made a song for Lethal League, and then he made several songs for this game as well.
Well, that's
I can't
cool.
wait for those to get dropped on streaming, because they sounded really good in-game.
I can't believe. So I already said I can't believe it though. These are the guys that made Lethal League. I actually add it to my wish list now. Seriously, like this makes so much sense. Like the styles, this is a perfect game for them. Yeah. I can't believe how much like this looks like Lethal League, but this is so perfect. I want to play this now.
Well, one great thing about this entire podcast so far is I think all of us have had games we add to our list now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, as if that's what we need in our life.
As if we don't build up our own collections, yeah.
I was just thinking I didn't have enough games to play.
I was just thinking to myself, I don't discover enough incredible games like on my own. I wish that there were other people that could make me play even more.
Oh my god. We're funny.
Another thing that ended in 2023 that I wanted to mention was the DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe or whatever, the Booster Course Pass that finished this year. And so now, as of last month, the amount of tracks in the game has doubled, and now there's like 96 tracks in one Mario Kart game, and it's been really, really cool to just have those like drop every few months, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hop in Mario Kart again just to check out the new content. I was always playing it with like friends whenever the new stuff would come out, and it was just really cool to see this stuff like it was just insanely fun. And obviously like Mario Kart 8 is already one of like the best looking Nintendo games like ever, and one of the best sounding Nintendo games ever, and so you just got additions to that incredible legacy. People were like complaining about each wave as they dropped, but I think the more that we like look back on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the more it's going to just be like overwhelmingly positive, I think.
They added in
and
that
nobody's
map
gonna
instead
really
of
care.
this one? Oh, I thought you were gonna
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that sort of thing. And they were like, the grass texture isn't the same one they used in the base game. And it's like, dude, you're driving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Shut up.
I literally remember that happening in real time on Twitter. Like, there was a big thing about it was a whole video of it's crazy. It's like I'm thinking, I know I don't care about. I know I'm the person who doesn't really like mind any kind of like graphic stuff, but do people really care about the grass textures in the Mario Kart game? Really?
That's what they were complaining about. Something a little bit more noticeable is they would complain about how they were putting the sideline guys a little bit too close to the main track, I guess, sometimes, so those would look kind of cruddy sometimes. But it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much, because now you get 96 tracks that are all at least pretty good. So I'm really glad to just have been along for the ride. It was a great time. I would always play Mario Kart with my friends. It was fucking awesome.
My sister loves Mario Kart. She still got her Wii with the wheel, and she plays that. And I have a Switch, so I've been thinking for a couple years, well, I could get the new Mario Kart and bring it over to our place, and we could play. That'd be cool. Every time I think of that, I remember that if you play Mario Kart with my sister, she becomes the most foul-mouthed little demon you have ever heard in your life. The language that comes out of her mouth, that is only when she plays Mario Kart, I cannot fathom it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Mario Kart is one of those games where it brings people together as much as it pushes them apart, and now you can do that 100 times over in this Switch game. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Some games that I played that did not release in 2023, but I played them for the first time now, is I got the remakes of the Klonoa games, and nobody knows what these games are. They're incredibly niche, so I'm glad that I finally got to play them through the remakes, but god damn, dude. They're such good puzzle platformers, and they have just this tone where you think you're playing a Mario or Kirby-esque kind of time, where you're just running around these kind of silly, surreal environments, and then but by the end of the game, the plot just completely derails into this really unsettling and kind of depressing direction. It's kind of fucking awesome how it makes you feel for Klonoa, on top of just keeping the quality of the physics puzzles just so high the entire time. And the games basically take place in a dream world, so you can encounter any sort of surreal situation, but the game also has these very relaxed soundtracks that kind of they lean a lot on waltz time. So you just always get this very relaxed feeling, you are in a dream world, and they're just incredible. They're just incredible games. Everybody should play these games. I am definitely going to make you guys play them on the podcast at some point if you don't get to them first. But these games are you get to the end of Klonoa 1 and you're like, damn. And then you get to the end of Klonoa 2 and you're like, bro. And it's I just played some of the best games I've ever played in my fucking life. Cool. It's crazy. And then I got my PS5, and so I got Astro's Playroom because it's fucking free. And yeah, it took me 2 hours to beat, because it's a pretty chunky little collectathon, but it's not too big. And it's a really fun little intro to your PS5, because not only do you get a really, really pretty game with really great graphics, and it gets to flex on being able to load up anything instantly, but it's also just a really cute little homage to PlayStation, because each of the 4 levels are based on something within the PS5. So you have a level that's supposed to be the system memory, you have one that's supposed to be the GPU, where there's literally a little weird vocal track in the background where the GPU is singing to you about how it wants to render things for you. It's really cute. And then you have a synthwave level based on the solid state drive, and then you have whatever the other level is. I forgot what the fuck. It's a water level based on the cooling unit is what it is. But also, when you get to the end of all the levels, they have an homage to each of the previous 4 PlayStations like boot up screens. And it's like really nostalgic and fun, and all the hidden collectibles you get are all like PlayStation consoles and accessories and stuff. It's just like an insanely and this is kind of a big spoiler, but it doesn't really matter. The boss at the end is this polygonal T-Rex, which apparently was one of the first tech demos that was ever shown off for the original PlayStation. And you have to fight it, and it's really wacky and cool. And all the little Astrobots are really adorable. So it's just like such a delightful little game to welcome you to your PS5, and it's really cool. It makes pretty cool use of all this stuff the DualSense controller can do. Really cool, really liked it.
I have a problem with that game.
What's that, Dork?
I have a problem with that game, in that, okay, it isn't like an actual like serious thing, but I will say I was watching like your video, because of course that was all the gameplay in the background, and I also like remember playing it too, and I was thinking, man, like the double jump thing trivializes so much of that game. I mean, like it's not even like a game to begin with, but like the double jump, I think you would have had to like engage with a lot more of the platforms itself if you didn't have it.
I don't mind it so much. I think it gives you a lot more flexibility. It keeps your characters like momentum really high, because it has these like speedrun challenges, and using the double jump boost for that sort of thing is like really, really fun, because you can find really great skips that way. I think it's mostly because the game is more of a collectathon. They just give you that much flexibility.
Disagree. Bottom.
Fair. Bottom of the list. Yeah. And then I played, Dorkaxe really strong-armed me into playing Signalis, which I'm really glad that you made me do it, because that's like, this is straight up like the best survival horror game in fucking ages, dude. It's so good. And not only is the level design like insanely tight with so many creative puzzles like I would expect out of a Resident Evil or Silent Hill inspired game, but also it does so much of its own thing in terms of the horror that it presents you with, because the type of discomfort you get from this game is like, it just has this really creeping overarching dread that like bursts into these like insanely trippy sequences where it's so impossible to make out. Like, you could even argue that like for some people they probably would not even be able to tell you what the actual plot of Signalis is after beating it, right? Like if me and Dorkaxe tried to summarize it, we would probably explain it 2 slightly different ways, just because of the way it presents the story, and it kind of just like assaults your senses at various points, and it's like crazy, and it just gives you just such a unique feeling in terms of being a horror game, but it also has the tight level design and puzzle design to back it up. So genuinely, this is like probably one of the best horror games I've ever played. Like it stacks up with Resident Evil 2, the original Resident Evil 2 for me, which is such a high bar to clear. And so yeah, Signalis is great. Everybody should play that. And then I also just wanted to say that I also really enjoyed all of the games that I played for my channel this year and for this podcast. Am I right, guys?
Yeah.
No. I must admit, like the only game for the podcast that I'd not played before was Pikmin, and while I might have been a bit negative on the game, I am happy I played it, and I've been eyeing Pikmin 2 now. I think within the next year or two I'll probably tackle that one.
Yes. Oh,
yes, dude.
Me and Drew just got
here's what I realized. Dude, I'm fully erect right now. Dork or Dave, when I realized at the end, like you were finally like having like the little epiphany of like what Pikmin's all about. So now every time you talk about it, and you were like watching after we recorded that podcast, you were sending us like 50 speed runs that you'd watch, yeah. And you were like, I'm kind of eyeing Pikmin 2, or oh, that looks kind of interesting. And I'm like, yeah, Dave gets it. He's got the bug.
You, and as we said too, like especially every Pikmin but one, you'll have all the time in the world, and you're just gonna be like, here's the challenge. I have all the time. Let's try to get this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll have a lot more flexibility, but yeah. Dave, what were your honorable mentions of this
Honorable
year?
mentions from Dave.
Boom, 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 boom.
World premiere.
Okay, well, I've got 3 from this year and then 3 from previous years. The first was Jusant, so I guess I only have 2 from this year because we talked about Jusant.
Jusant. It's like a French name, isn't it?
Yep, I think you don't pronounce the T. That was a shortcut I learned from a Polish friend. He's like, oh yeah, a shortcut for trying to pronounce French words is you usually lop off the last letter of the word.
Mm-hmm. Jusant.
But earlier, Drew, no, was it Drew or Dork? I think it was, it was Drew talking about how people need to look to indie games if they want to find themselves a Zelda-like experience. And this year I played a game called Chia, Tchia. It is a game, I think it's only on the Epic Store. There was a game from 2014 called Never Alone, where it was a platformer that you were one of the indigenous people of Alaska. And in between the platforming that was based on one of their myths, you got to see footage of actually how they live and what their culture is. And I found it a really interesting look into a culture I knew nothing about, and I wished there were more games that did something like that. Chia is that for New Caledonia. You're in a fictional world based on New Caledonia instead of on the islands themselves. But you play this little girl whose dad is kidnapped by this horrible, weird man, and it's very actually like Wind Waker meets Breath of the Wild, because you got the glider and you can go up to like mountaintops and glide off. But because it's islands, you've got to you can swim, but I think you get a boat later on in the game. So it's kind of like a Zelda-like set in a culture that I know very little about. But one thing that really got me on board was there were these, because music is a large part of their culture. So you've got these sections where you sit around a fire with your father or another person, and you've either got, like shells you're clicking together or a ukulele you're strumming, and it goes into like this long rhythm game section where...
Added to list.
Yeah, that would get Drew immediately. Where it's kind of like going through one of the songs of the culture, at least in that style. So, just based on what it is, I'll look into a culture that I don't know much about, and just how vibrant it is, and I really like the music. It's something that I look very much forward to continuing in the future.
Drew, I just checked like the trailer. Yeah, I think you're gonna vibe with it.
Heck yeah, dude. Okay, I think I saw it on my PlayStation home screen today, so I'll have to just go get it this month.
Also, Dave, I will point out, I've also played Never Alone, and I also liked how it showed actual clips of stuff. That was cool.
It seems like games have a special power to, put you in a time and place, and not too many take advantage of it. There was another game called 1979 Revolution Black Friday, which came out in 2015, 2016. And it was like a Telltale adventure game, but you were playing through the early days of the Iranian Revolution in 1979. And it was episode 1 of what was supposed to be a much larger thing, but they never got, I guess, the sales or funding to continue it. And it always sucked, because that game was very compelling. Also, it's a part of the world and a part of history I know very little about, and it would have been cool to experience more of that through the medium. So let me go to the next one. The final game of this year that I want to talk about is one called Humanity. It's a puzzle game. It's kind of like Lemmings. It actually very much like Lemmings. You play an ethereal dog who uses their barks to guide throngs of humans to not walk off ledges.
That's awesome.
Seriously, thousands of humans pour out of the start level, and you've got to guide them to the exit. Now, apparently when they fall off, they don't actually die. They just loop around to coming out again. That's what the game tells you. It does not feel like that. So every time I made a mistake, I would restart the level, so I didn't waste a single human. And as the levels go on, they introduce more mechanics. There's jump pads so the humans jump up, and it's weird because if you get the golden humans, which are like, the special thing you have to go for, that actually gives you mechanics that are very beneficial to playing the game, like a fast forward function or a rewind function. So that's weird that's kind of locked behind the secrets. But apparently what the game is about is also very ethereal. I've heard a lot of people don't actually like what the game becomes in the later stages, but based on what I played, I mean, it looks really cool because, they're using technology to just render thousands upon thousands of humans like walking aimlessly wherever your barks choose to lead them. And the levels have a very, like PS1, very abstract geometry look to them that I really dug.
Heck yeah.
So just as a cool little puzzle game that reminds me of like Lemmings and has kind of a more, I guess, abstract inward idea going on with what it's actually about. Yeah, it kind of was one of those that really clicked with me.
That's sick. That's awesome. It honestly looks really cool. So I also added it to the wish list. So you're doing a lot here, Dave, for me.
Yeah. Every game I mention, you're like, ah, shit.
God damn it! This does look good.
Okay, now I've got 3 games from previous years that I played that really struck me the right way. The first is one I actually only played a couple weeks ago, called Teardown. I think it's from 2022. Like Station to Station, it's a game based on voxels. I guess I just love voxels. It is a game where you're given, like, you've got to demolish this house before sunset, and you're given like a sledgehammer, and you can just, you can knock the voxels out of the walls and just plow through, or, you can get in that bulldozer that's around the corner and just fucking demolish the thing and watch the voxels go everywhere. But what made the game more interesting, based on just like, it being a kind of a Lego-based Destructathon, is that in the second level you have to sneak into a factory and steal something. And once you do that, the people who gave you that job want you to go back into the factory, but because you already broke in, suddenly the factory's got more security, and the things you need to steal actually trigger an alarm. Once you take it, you've got a minute before, like, basically the police come. So what's really cool about that level, and I guess that's what kind of the game is that you need to use your powers of destruction to make a path from, like, you've got 3 things to collect, and so once you grab the first one, the alarm starts. So you gotta go, okay, I'm gonna crash this car here, then I'm gonna crash this car through the gate. Okay, I can get through the gate, so now I can climb up the crane, and let's see, I can bust a hole through that wall. You basically plan your entire run before you do it, and it's all based around just breaking holes into things and destroying things. So that's really cool.
It looks really interesting. I'd say it has like a Steam tag of heist, and I didn't initially I didn't realize it had actual levels. I was thinking, this looks really cool with all the physics and stuff, but it looks like another Minecraft thing where I don't have enough, to pull me forward. But like the level idea, honestly, I love when like you mix a cool system with, here are some concrete goals to do. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to trying this out at some point.
Another one. Woo!
Hey, no, I already had this on the wish list before, so you can't claim this one.
Okay. I've had enough. Okay, so the second one from years past is Ghostwire Tokyo. I played this in January, I think, because it came out on Game Pass, I believe. And it's by the dev team who made The Evil Within 1 and 2 and Hi-Fi Rush, which people were really into that game. I tried it. It wasn't for me. I know you have some opinions about that game, Dork.
I do. Is now the time?
If you want to, before I talk about Ghostwire Tokyo, go ahead.
So I really like how I think Hi-Fi Rush is really impressive because everything is synced to the beat, and like the combat is always like synced to the beat. That's the whole point. But man, it's so hard for me to get into like a dedicated action game sometimes because the pacing is everything. If I could just have like more fights, then I think I would keep going. But so much of that game, they just make you like walk around these really like I guess kind of interesting, like, looking levels, but they're so, everything that isn't combat is really, really boring. So it's like, don't have the ratio be like 30% combat, 70% walking around doing jack shit. Like, even like in Devil May Cry, you were able to like stumble upon like bonus missions to have more combat, or at the very least, here's a puzzle to figure out. I don't know. It feels like we should have like moved on from this, where you like walk around and do jack shit. The platforming itself is awful. It can't carry itself at all. And then it's like, oh, finally we have some combat. Like, it's a horrible ratio.
Yeah. But their previous game, Ghostwire Tokyo, one thing I was first struck by was just how amazing the visuals are. Like, there are some, not only like cutscenes where, there's something really cool happening, but even like when the game first had me attack an enemy, like just realizing what I was doing was really impactful. And then there are sections like you're walking through this hospital, and it is a horror game. So, like spooky things are happening. Like, I'm walking through the hospital and suddenly like the walls catch fire. But just the fire looks so beautiful. The way the lighting works, the way the framing works, like just everything I played was beautiful. And then the cutscenes were doubly so. It was very novel, where it was like, originally it seemed like an on-rail shooter. You use your like fingers to like shoot spirit energy at ghosts, and but then you also have to like sneak around because it's a horror game. So it's like you do have a way to attack enemies, but it's more you want to get the jump on them. So it's more like a stealth game, I guess. And then from what I hear, I only played like the first level, but the game is actually an open world. You've got like this section of Tokyo that you can walk the streets of. And I got to walk a small street, like from where the game starts to the hospital, and that was pretty cool. But like the idea that, it turns into kind of an open world game, looking this good and with mechanics that are this interesting, I've heard it does wear out its welcome because it is an open world game. But I have not played The Evil Within 1 and 2 because they seem like very scary games, and I still have a problem with horror games. But with Ghostwire Tokyo, the gameplay was so novel and the visuals were so captivating that I think it overrode that, oh, I'm scared reflex I have.
Yeah, honestly, I played maybe a half an hour of it, and I also really liked how pretty it looked. I didn't realize it was made by the people who made Evil Within. That's interesting. I almost want to play Evil Within 2 first before I do it, because I heard that one improves on things. I almost wonder if like Ghostwire Tokyo is like almost like if it'll be obvious it's even more of an iteration on like Evil Within 2, that kind of thing. So it certainly looks interesting, and I have it already, so you can't claim ownership of this one either.
Well, and finally, this is probably not a shock to either of you, considering how I've been talking about it for the past few weeks. But the final game I want to talk about that did not come out in 2023 that I'm just obsessed with is Disco Elysium. I'm playing it now for it's my next critique that will probably come out early next year. I've completed it once. I want to play it again in its entirety before I start writing about it. But, I'm like watching critique videos, then reading about it, and just as a CRPG, it is just so well written and so well designed that it literally has made me think about how this shows us a new direction for where games could go. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it's because it's a CRPG with no combat, but there are scenes of violence and action within the game, but they're far and few between, and they're very impactful, and they can go well or they can go really, really, really wrong depending on dice rolls. And what that proved to me is that, like, if you watch an action movie, if it was 97% action, it would be a really boring movie. And yet, that's how games have worked forever, including computer role-playing games. Like Dork, you mentioned Pillars of Eternity, or even Baldur's Gate 3. You will get into a fight more than you do anything else in those games, because we still got this idea that combat is the easiest form of conflict, and conflict is what we need to keep games interesting. What Disco Elysium, I think, is telling me is that, like an action movie, yeah, you want action, but you also want your downtime to make the action more impactful. You want the characters to react to the action. You basically want consequences. You want a story. And, if a story is in an action genre or a horror genre, it's primarily that kind of thing, but it's not, it's peaks and valleys. And I think that's one of the things that really hit me now that I've been thinking more and more about the game, having played it. But then there's just so much more in every one of its systems. Hearing the developer Robert Kurvitz talk about why they designed the game the way they designed it just has opened my mind to, this is one of the cleverest games in a long time. Hopefully it will inspire other games to go in this direction. It also makes me very mad because if you know anything about like the turmoil at that developer, the lead designers of the game were basically screwed out of their own property. So even if there is a sequel, it probably won't be what it could be. It's all just very sad. But as we got Disco Elysium, we got something that I feel this strongly about. That is just, it's literally one of the best games I played ever, I think. And I look forward to not only replaying it, to try out new things and to understand more about it, but then to finally write about it and see if I can say anything of substance.
Well, Dave, I'm pretty proud, I will say.
Oh?
Because I voted for this. I really wanted you to play this game because I was like, I feel like Dave's going to fucking love this. So I am extremely happy to hear that you adored it as much as you did. I want to play it again. I haven't played it all the way through, or anything, but I know even like when I played, it was really cool. I think I just happened to have like a random bug, and as we were talking about earlier, sometimes when like a thing happens like that, it kind of kills like your like desire to keep going, and that's what happened. But man, I wouldn't mind trying it again. It's so interesting how much can be derived just from like text on screen, and it's just it's insane.
And dice rolls, because you've got 24 skills that you can put points into, and based on how many points are in those skills, you can walk around the world and you will get different skills chiming in with different observations. And then there are random rolls with every line of dialogue to everyone you talk with, that those skills can chime in with suggestions because the skill was high enough that you passed the roll that is going on in the background for that skill to chime in. And it could add another dialogue option, and it could change your idea of how you want to proceed with this conversation. It is insane.
Heck yeah. Drew, are you at all interested in this game?
Oh, no, yeah. I was going to chime in and say that just hearing the secondhand accounts that Dave's been telling us about, like, it's really, really, like, I have been interested. I pointed Dave in the direction of Yurik Salabar's video, which, by the way, that guy's art is fucking awesome. But I watched his video. His video was the one where basically he was talking about how people will try to play their character as a centrist because they're centrist in real life, and then the character becomes a fascist because they're stupid.
Yeah.
And that's such a funny idea to me. So I've always had my eye like on the game in the background, but hearing like secondhand accounts like from Dave, it's another example out of the many in this podcast alone where Dave has shown me like hundreds of cool things that I want to get to at some point when I'm not playing when I'm not forcing myself to play the newest, largest, longest JRPG that just came out. But Disco Elysium sounds super, super cool. And obviously, more than anything, I'm super, super pumped for Dave's critique on it.
I also wanted to mention, of course, like that won't be like the next video coming out, which I wanted to say. So, Dave, are you saying that out of all like the 53 NES games you played, none of them crack this list?
For those of you not in the know who don't follow my channel, I started a insane project this year where I decided I'm going to do a video on every year of the NES, meaning that I'm going to play every game that came out in like 1985, 1986. I'm now working on the 1987 video, and that should come out in December. Should. Oh, God. Actually, you know what's funny? is that 1987 has a couple games in it that I've constantly talked about like being some of my favorite games of all time. But I think I just didn't think about this list in terms of, the NES games.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Plus, I mean, I'm sure, like your takeaway for a lot of it is like, oh God, a lot of these aren't great.
Yeah. Though I don't want to give too much away, but when you were talking about Miasma Chronicles, and I made the observation that it sounds like there's a great game underneath the muck. Well, actually, that's how I'm starting to feel about a lot of NES games. Like I play them, and they're pretty terrible, but I can see with just a little bit of rebalancing here, rebalancing there, like it could be a pretty good game. Mm-hmm. Which is always, I guess, a trap, because you should never talk about what could be. You always have to really talk about what is. But it's just something that's becoming more and more apparent. I'm like, yeah, just with a little more time in the oven, this could be something.
If these doors were painted different, I swear, dude, I swear. Just give me a different visual design.
Okay.
True.
Well, we're almost at the end. Before I read the list, I just maybe want to finalize. Drew, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts about 2023 as a year for gaming?
Great for the output, because so many series and franchises that I love got really great entries in them, as we've obviously covered here. There's a lot of great re-releases and ports that expose great games to even bigger audiences. There were great add-ons to games. There were some really great DLCs even as well. Unfortunately, the last couple months especially, there just been like wave after wave of huge amounts of layoffs. And this is also coming after years and years and years of people like freaking Bobby Kotick still being in charge of things. It really stinks to say that maybe it's a little bit less, it seems to be a little bit less bad in Japan, because we've been getting news reports of increasing salaries for devs over there. But at least a little bit more on the Western front, it just really seems like people care about their bottom line. Companies care more about their bottom line than retaining talent. And so I think something's got to give at some point. But for now, the output on so many games has been really incredible this year. But I'm interested to see where things will end up as a result of so much of the company politics that have been going on this year in the games industry.
Dork?
You know what? I was just gonna say, yeah, a whole bunch of cool games, but you had me thinking, right? There are like a few industry things that are kind of annoying me. Sorry, but I'm not a huge fan of how like the AAA industry is kind of heading. It seems like we're just either gonna have acquisitions after acquisition, or we're going to have crunch, or even just like creatively uninspired. I love The Last of Us Part 2 in some ways, but it's kind of sad to me. I feel like we've lost Naughty Dog. I feel like we've lost them. Yeah. They're so obsessed with Last of Us that they're going to remaster The Last of Us Part 2. Again, I actually think like the new game mode that they hinted, it sounds great. Again, like the gameplay is the best part, by a mile. I mean, unless you count the animations. Animations for those games are outstanding. But even still, it's like we know that even if it was just like, hey, these guys are clearly never going to make anything more interesting again, it would already be kind of sad. But we know that the company isn't like run the best either, So it's just really, like sad that it's like, great, this really like depressing game that you guys just happen to create also depressed a lot of your workers because you crunched them to oblivion. Like, it's so fucking annoying that even at so you have all that stuff, which is really annoying. But I will say, as much as I love Tears of the Kingdom, I love that we have a new Zelda game, we have a new Pikmin, like the RE4 like remake was great. As much as I really love all that, I am beyond excited about like Baldur's Gate 3. I genuinely hope that this wins Game of the Year. All the talk around it, even though it had like some like pushback of, oh, it's gonna make like developers cry, or I don't remember what the stupid controversy was. It was really silly. But even with all that said, this is different. This is clearly not the same like molding that we've seen, and I really, because of course like Elden Ring like last year took the world by storm, but really, come on, it was an open world. It was just like Breath of the Wild, except it was Dark Souls. It was impressive in some ways, but it wasn't like breaking any boundaries, right? But fucking Baldur's Gate 3 is a CRPG, and it's breaking into the mainstream like crazy. Yeah. So super hyped about that. Even if I don't like love it as much as Tears of the Kingdom, I am so ready for like developers to be like, oh, we can make different games. Maybe this will work. So really hoping that that's going to be the trend. We'll see. We can only hope, right? But
yeah.
Overall, though, a crazy awesome year for games. I'm sure there'll be a lot that I play in the coming years where I'll be like, holy shit, that year was even better than I thought. But just the fact that we've got Zelda and Pikmin and also like a 2D Mario. Crazy. Awesome stuff.
You know what you talked about catching up like in the next few years, playing even more games from 2023. That reminds me of, I think my January and February this year was mostly playing cool games that came out in Q4 of 2022 that I'd either missed or, just forgot about. But let's see. So my thoughts, I mean, obviously everything on my top 5 list was an indie game. And a true indie, unlike, Dave the Diver. I only actually heard about that yesterday, about how it was funded by a huge studio. And I'm like, oh, so it's not an indie game.
Wait, I hang on. I guess I haven't even heard this whole thing.
Yeah, so apparently there is pushback about Dave the Diver being in the indie category because it's being bankrolled by this huge, I think either a publisher or another big studio.
That's fucked up, man. Especially with how many good indie games that like didn't make that list. It's like again, indie as like this catch-all for like underpriced games is already dumb in its own sense. But if we can't even at least agree that it should be not huge studios, come on.
Yeah. So my top 5 list was all different indie games. My short list was that too. It was only when we go back to like previous years, I mentioned Ghostwire Tokyo or Disco Elysium, which are big budget games, but they're also, I mean, at least Disco, that's from a smaller studio. They just had years of funding and crunch that destroyed them, sadly. But Ghostwire Tokyo, I guess what do you call them, double A, or do you think they're full triple A?
I would probably call them triple A. I'd call them triple, and then I would just call like Naughty Dog like quadruple at this point.
Right. I guess it depends, like who's working for the studio and how much money they have backing them and how much time is allotted to them moving forward. But, so my point, though, bringing up my list was you can tell from my interest that I tend to gravitate towards, I guess, maybe experiences I haven't really had before. Also, I guess because my laptop's not the best, I don't want to try and melt my graphics card trying to play something that's only going to run at half speed, just to try and keep up with the Joneses, as it were. Although, having a Switch and playing both Mario Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom, they're both amazing. But, it's also weird because Nintendo is like its own separate thing when talking about the games industry.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
But yeah, like I think when I think back to all the games I played this year, when I was trying to create my top 5, most of them were weirder, more indie titles. I mean, I tried some of the big ones if I could, but I'm also happy that the big AAA games that tended to make a splash, were all like very well made. I mean, there are exceptions. Like, despite how banal it looks to me, Starfield seems to be a runaway hit, like a big success for Bethesda. But I mean, Bethesda, I think, is still at that stage where people trust them, so they could shit in a box and it would probably still sell.
Oh my god!
Sorry, was that too crude?
No, but
how
you're
can
right,
you tell me how you
bro.
really feel, dude?
We saw weird things with, like, I brought Redfall up earlier, but that's Arcane. They're one of the big players. That thing fucking tanked, man. There were a couple others like that this year as well. God, I wish I could bring them to mind, but like, they were supposed to be big things and they come out and just nothing. It's probably indicative.
I just wanted to, if we're on that, fucking last year with Babylon's Fall, don't get me started with that.
Dude,
fucking Platinum
Jesus
Games
Christ.
in the ground.
I know.
It's fucking, I bought that game, guys. I bought that on the PS4,
What?
so I couldn't even refund it, right? So fuck them. Fuck them. All right, I'm pissed.
Look,
I was like, no, it's a cool concept. It's Platinum. I trust them. For some reason, it'll be great, and it's fucking dog shit.
I want to blame you for that, but yeah, no, you if you're a Platinum fan as well, you'd think, well, fuck, how can they steer me wrong?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I think Astral Chain was like their last big thing for me, and like Bayonetta 3 is okay. I don't know.
Well, it's that thing where you're only as good as your last game, the saying goes. But I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like I love Bit Trip Runner 2. It's one of my favorite games. So when Bit Trip Runner 3 came out, I bought that immediately. And Bit Trip Runner 3 sucks. I don't like the game. I think it's got a lot of problems. So the next game that came out, I was more wary. I was like, I don't kind of trust you guys anymore. Same thing with, I love the Talos Principle so much that when the Talos Principle 2 came out, I bought it immediately. And when I eventually played through it, if I don't like it as much, well, I probably won't buy their next game. But if I love it, then I'm going to give them, again, the benefit of the doubt.
Dude, this is literally, okay, sorry, I don't want to keep like extending this episode, but this is literally like how it works, and it's crazy. So like, for example, RE6 was fucking terrible, but it was still going off the reputation RE4 and 5 had. Mm-hmm. And then because people were so wary of RE6, hardly anyone really were trying to pay attention to RE7. And because RE7 is so good, everyone bought RE8, which I think is way worse than RE7. So it's just this crazy like back and forth of like you have to create something really good, and then like your next thing will do great. Which is why it's like sometimes you kind of have to let like a studio have a sequel, because that's how they're gonna make their money, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But aside, you both touched upon the monopolizing that's going on in the industry, the countless acquisitions, the layoffs. Embracer Group has just been shutting down all the studios they've bought over the last few years left and right, because obviously they're hurting for money, which just sucks because a lot of studios that were, making pretty popular games are now gone. Like Volition is gone. They made the Saints Row games. They've been dormant for a while, but I played that Saints Row reboot this year, and that was pretty good. I want to play more of that, but we're never going to get anything else because they're gone. There was one at the moment that looks like it's never going to see the light of day now. Yeah, no, it's just, there has always been tension between the business side and the artistic side of any medium, but it just seems, especially like this year's been bad, but it really feels like the last decade or more, that imbalance is really becoming like, you can't ignore it anymore. Even if you're that shut up about what's happening about the games, I just want to play the games, those people can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
Late stage capitalism. This is what it all leads to,
Yeah, but so we don't end our podcast, end of year podcast on a complete downer. Everything sucks, everybody. Goodbye. Merry Christmas. But let's go through the top 15. We'll read them, we'll react, we'll say our goodbyes, and we'll go.
We've overstayed our welcome. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. So, number 15, we have Woo Loop. Number 14.
Yippee.
Number 14, we have Final Fantasy 16.
It just narrowly beat Woo Loop.
Just the fact that's so low on the list just warms my heart, I have to say.
Listen, it deserves to be that low. Clive is insanely hot. Maybe if I got to see him shirtless more, I would have put it higher.
And also, remember how ridiculous the idea of rankings are, because these are our top 15 games of the year. There's nothing on this list that doesn't deserve to be on it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, number 13 is Jusong. See, I didn't pronounce the T that time. God, I really should have written the numbers. I'm trying to count backward in my head. Number 12 is Turbo Overkill. Number 11 is Aliens Dark Descent.
Jeez.
Okay.
I didn't realize it got bumped down that much.
No, it needed to. It needed to. I'm happy it's here, but it needed to get bumped.
Number 10 is the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. Number 9, Thirsty Suitors. Number 8, Station to Station. Number 7, Showgunners at number 7.
Holy shit, that's high for Showgunners. I didn't realize it was that high. Dude, I must have campaigned you guys well. I'm a good politician.
I'm not. Number 6 is Cocoon. That's my number 1 of the year.
Rip.
Number 5 is Pikmin 4.
Damn it!
Oh,
Fucked up. No! We were gonna get Pikmin 4 at number 4 as my 4th pick. No!
Wait, does that mean... What's number 4?
Number 4 is Super Mario Wonder.
Drew,
What?
you could have done it. You should have put it below.
It's fine.
All right.
It's like Super Mario Wonder being higher on the list is worth not having the joke.
Yeah, it's okay.
Number 3 is Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Woo!
I think that's appropriate. That game is amazing. You should all go play it. I need to buy it so I can stream it. Number 2 is the Resident Evil 4 remake. And then, surprising absolutely no one, number 1 is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
I won this list.
Yeah, you freaking swept, you fucking dickhead.
My top 2 is the top 2 of the list. And I can't believe I convinced you guys to keep RE4 that high, because you guys haven't played it. So it's like...
I know, honestly, I should have jostled probably a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, fucking, we have to put Mario above RE. And be like, you know what? I'd have been like, maybe. You know, honestly, maybe.
Drew,
yeah, maybe I should have fought a little bit.
Drew, next year, will rock the boat.
Yeah, next year I'm gonna come ready to freaking fight, and you guys are gonna see a side of me that you've never seen before.
Oh God!
I don't want to see your butt.
You will see the dark side of the moon.
Does that mean anus?
Wait! He'll see the dork side of the moon.
That's all, folks.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Let's wrap up. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this. We had a lot of fun making it. Hopefully we'll have another one in 2024. Now, our next official episode is for Catherine Full Body. That will probably be out sometime, I think around maybe February. We'll see how we go. But until then, we hope you had a lovely 2023. Let us know what games topped your list, what in our list made you interested in trying out. We hope you all have a wonderful 2024. Have a great holiday, everyone. We'll see you next year.
I've been Drew Doodle.
And I have to pee. Bye.